mysteries. You have to be brave. We don't know that much about the ocean. It's always been good at keeping secrets. Right now, not enough people have the courage to explore it. The ocean is big. How big? So big that we haven't mapped more than 20% of it. Exploration used to be about men on a risky journey, wanting better understanding, returning to tell heroic tales. That has changed. Now, exploration is about data sharing. It's a whole new way of seeing, but it is still risky. It's the risk of getting it wrong. How far have we come in using the power of data? Well, data sets are often old, or data is in low resolution. Data on emissions may be kept private, or data is unstructured. Policymakers, scientists, and industry are all struggling to make decisions based on limited access to information. A lot of the time, they only see data from a small piece of the puzzle. They only see their own aquarium. What happens if we fail to share what we know? The ocean is crucial for everyone on the planet. It produces more than half your oxygen and absorbs a third of the CO2. More and more food will have to come from the ocean. It's our biggest farmland by far. It's also our biggest transportation system. And a place for future renewable energy. The problem is, the ocean's health has been in decline for far too long. Even though the ocean is vast, marine life is living in the same space as dense traffic, commercial fishing, and industrial energy production. If you want to build an offshore wind farm or use the ocean's resources, you need to prove that life in the ocean remains unaffected. If you want to increase the size of fish stocks, you need dynamic no-take zones. If you want to avoid toxic algal bloom attacking your fish farm, you should be able to predict when that will happen. Explore the ocean by liberating your data, and join us.
The Twilight Zone is the most exciting and important place you have never heard of. 200 metres beneath the ocean surface, where sunlight runs out, the Twilight Zone begins. It is a vast, earth-spanning ecosystem teeming with life. But what is so special about the Twilight Zone? It witnesses one of the largest migrations in the natural world, every day. Each dusk, in all oceans, phenomenal numbers of creatures, shrimps, fish, squid, rise hundreds of metres to feed near the surface, returning to depth at dawn. The Twilight Zone is also crucial to how the ocean takes up and stores carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Extraordinarily, the Twilight Zone is still largely pristine, but pressures are mounting. Deep sea mining, fishing, climate change, and proposed interventions to suck carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere all threaten it.
We must understand the beauties and benefits of the Twilight Zone, and we must ensure this information gets to the policymakers and managers who control its fate before it's too late. This is the aim of JETSON. Here are just two examples of how your support could help. Many young ocean scientists never get the opportunity to join an expedition at sea, such as this one, despite spaces being available. Your support could help us connect spaces to those who benefit from it most, building experience in more countries, supporting careers for future scientists, managers, and policymakers. Argo floats, like this one, are a revolutionary fleet of satellites in the ocean. And camera systems, like this one, can capture creatures that are smaller than the thickness of a human hair, in color, in the pitch black deep ocean. Your support would allow us to install these cameras on the Argo fleet, giving us eyes to see the Twilight Zone all around the world.
There are many other ways we could work together to create a sustainable approach to the Twilight Zone. please get in touch with us to explore the possibilities. Thank you.
The Ocean Biomolecular Observing Network, or OBON for short, is developing a collaboration that will give science and society an unprecedented understanding of global ocean life. Ocean life, from viruses to whales, is built from biomolecules, the basic building blocks of life. OBON's vision is that all ocean observing systems will become capable of detecting these biomolecular signatures of ocean life. In turn, this will open new horizons for understanding, managing, and conserving the living ocean.
Biomolecules such as DNA infuse every drop of ocean water. The UN Ocean Decade recognizes that the ocean faces multiple stressors, including pollution, habitat loss, overfishing, and climate change. OBON will transform how we sense, protect, and manage ocean life using molecular tools. Some of these tools can be adapted for use in developing nations with limited resources. A global coordinated network that builds capacity in all regions will be critical to revolutionize biomolecular observing of the ocean.
OBON has only just started, but there are some interesting projects on the way. OBON will help communities detect biological hazards that are detrimental to the way we live, such as harmful algal blooms, which are a risk to our ocean food sources, and pathogens that can make us sick. OBON can also help us assess food security, detect invasive species, maintain and restore biodiversity, assess species health within food webs, look at wastewater incursions, and antibiotic resistance.
Intercalibration and standardization of methods will be key to the success of biomolecular monitoring and research. Aligned methods, from planning expeditions to sharing and analyzing our data, will support collective action across projects and partners and help us gain an understanding of how ocean life is changing globally. By bringing together projects and partners under a shared vision, OBON will help achieve the aspirations of the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development.
The ECOP programme serves as the backbone organisation for enabling global ECOP engagement with all the activities of the Ocean Decade. our objective is that ECOPs become an essential part of all programs, actions, and activities, and to recognise their contributions throughout the decade. Our activities will serve to curate the global story of how ECOPs are leading the way. Our outputs include the creation of a network of networks to build a global community of ECOPs. We will also expand opportunities for capacity development, with special emphasis on building skills to bridge science to action. We will continue our activities related to ocean literacy and youth engagement to inspire the next generation to learn and care about the ocean. Finally, we will look for opportunities to stimulate exchanges with the private sector to accelerate the use of science and technology to solve real-world problems. The ECOP programme is all about intergenerational diversity and how the next generation of ocean leaders can pave the way for a more inclusive and equitable use of science to drive sustainable development. We want to place special emphasis on giving opportunities to ECOPs from countries that have not traditionally had access to them. Our programme aims to reach out to a generation regardless of the ocean basin they live in or ocean sector they work in. This is certainly not an easy task, but one that we must commit to, since we all know by now that working in geographic or disciplinary silos will not help us generate the science we need for the ocean we all want.
The ocean is my home, is my happy place. My biggest passion is to be in the ocean. During my 15 years as a professional surfer, I've seen a lot of changes in the ocean, a lot more plastic, less life. It breaks my heart. The ocean is facing enormous challenges, from habitat destruction to overfishing. It's something we have to act on now. If we all act for a healthy ocean, we can make massive changes. Gen Ocean, for the ocean we need.
We've been studying the deep sea for the last 150 years. We've learned a great deal, but our piecemeal approach and the expense and remoteness of this vast realm mean that our knowledge base and capacity are limited and biased toward economically developed nations and their marine territories. For some parts of the world ocean, we simply have no knowledge. This is a problem, given our increasing use of the deep ocean for things like fishing and mining. As human use pushes deeper into our ocean, we need to be able to predict the consequences of our actions so that we can make informed choices and manage our oceans sustainably. Challenger 150 is an established grassroots initiative built by the deep sea biology community with over 200 members from 38 nations and growing. We are fortunate indeed to work in the deep sea and see the sheer wonder and beauty that it holds. But we also see the impacts of poor management choices, like the destruction of fragile ecosystems vital to sustaining life in the ocean. And we fear for the onward consequences on the global environment and human society. The program coordinates global deep sea biology research effort to fill data gaps, build capacity for deep sea research, and perhaps most importantly, provide knowledge and science-based advice to decision makers. With your help, we will map life in the deep ocean to provide the knowledge needed to manage the ocean sustainably for all our futures. We hope that you will consider supporting Challenger 150 under the UN Ocean Decade. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kathy Mills, a scientist at the Gulf of Maine Research Institute, and I'm here today representing FishScore, an Ocean Decade program focused on fishery strategies for changing oceans and resilient ecosystems by 2030. FishScore is a global network of partners, including fishery scientists, managers, stakeholders, practitioners, and policymakers who are committed to supporting climate resilience in marine fisheries. This network will develop and continually advance information and tools for assessing and enhancing climate resilience in ecological, socioeconomic, and governance dimensions of fisheries. We will work in partnership with local and regional fisheries to co-develop and co-conduct climate resilience assessments to evaluate climate risk, attributes of the fishery system that support or constrain resilience, and strategies to strengthen climate readiness. Through an iterative process of working across global to local scales, FishScore will advance context-appropriate climate solutions in specific fisheries and synthesize science and policy recommendations that are relevant to diverse fisheries around the world. Marine fisheries support many sustainable development goals, including food security, poverty reduction, and human health and well-being.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear ministers, dignitaries, dear Ocean Decade stakeholders, dear guests here in the Ciencia Viva Auditorium, as well as in the overflow room next door, I believe, watching us online, and of course everybody who's really watching us online, wherever you are in the world. A very, very warm welcome to the Decade Forum at the UN Ocean Conference 2022. My name is Monica Jones, and apart from being a TV news anchor, I've also had the great pleasure to moderate 7 virtual Ocean Decade laboratories over the last 12 months. And this is why I'm absolutely delighted that I've been asked to be here with you today in Lisbon to moderate this fantastic event this afternoon, because today we want to celebrate the global community that is surrounding the Ocean Decade, and spread over 5 sessions. We will hear from high-level representatives here on stage with me already, all the way to young dreamers, and they will all be talking about their vision for the future of our oceans. Now, in short, we will try to pack a whole decade into just about 2.5 hours this afternoon, but I'm sure with everybody involved we'll be able to do that. And of course, because we're all just human, we also have planned in a short refreshment break for everybody who is here with us in Lisbon. Of course, you at home, you can have a refreshment whenever you like, as long as you stay near the screen and follow what's happening. This refreshment break will take place at about 3:20 p.m. so that we keep your strength up. And at this point, I would also like to thank everybody who made this event possible, including Schmidt Ocean Institute for preparing the opening video, and Hub Ocean for generously sponsoring the intermission. And now something for everybody who is here in the auditorium and also in the overflow room. You should already have received a copy of a Nautilus magazine special edition on Ocean Decade. If you haven't, then please be sure that on your way out, so in about 2.5 hours from now, to pick up a copy at the reception. Because we have so many great speakers here, I don't want to take much time, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to be able to kick off this Ocean Decade Forum officially now with a fantastic lineup of high-level speakers. We have here with us from the Seychelles, the Minister of Agriculture, Climate Change and Environment, His Excellency Flavien Joubert. We have from Sweden, the State Secretary to the Minister for Climate and the Environment, Mr. Anders Grönvall, and representing the Ocean Decade for UNESCO. And finally, I can announce him in person after all those virtual conferences, Vladimir Rabinin, Executive Secretary of IUC UNESCO. So one after the other, they will come to the lectern now, and we've given them 3 minutes. Can you believe it? High-level speakers, 3 minutes. Let's see how they do. We would like to start now with a perspective from the small islands developing states, and we can look forward to some insights into the importance of the Ocean Decade for the blue economy and fisheries and the role that the Seychelles are playing here. And for that, I would now like to give the floor to the Seychellois Minister of Agriculture, Climate Change and Environment, His Excellency Flavien Joubert. Welcome.
Thank you, moderator. Good afternoon, everyone. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to congratulate the organizers for the successful materialization and turnout for this side event. I would equally like to convey my appreciation to having the privilege of making an address at this very high-level panel. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ocean Decade is of paramount importance to small island states like Seychelles, that has for long valorized the ocean and that equally aspires to place it at the center of its development. The ocean has traditionally been the pathway to securing our livelihoods, and it is where we currently look towards in our pursuit of sustainable societal progression. This is unsurprising, since Seychelles constitute about 99.7% ocean, which thereby makes the ocean our biggest asset. Moreover, considering that our planet constitutes about 71% water, of which a huge majority is ocean, then the slogan, "The ocean we need for the world we want," is most ideal to illustrate not just the relationship between the Ocean Decade and Agenda 2030, but also the relationship between humanity and planet Earth. Excellencies, regardless of its statute of prominence in both global environmental ecosystems and global economies, the ocean remains a vast, uncharted space that most of us know very little about. It is our blind spot, and so long that it remains as such, it will be deprived of our protection, whilst we will be deprived of the opportunity it presents for a better life. This is why the Ocean Decade could be viewed as a turning point, as an opportunity to tip the scales in our favor. It is only through science and research that we will know what we have, how much we have, and what we could have. There is therefore an increasing need for us policymakers to start making more data-driven decisions. For this to happen, we need to not only invest in science and research, but to simultaneously build a bridge between the decision makers and academia to effectively break the language barrier between the two. Important to highlight is that in the Seychelles Blue Economy Roadmap, research and development is identified as a development frontier and an area of focus for action and investment. Evidently, with the launch of the Ocean Decade, we have been amplifying our efforts to encourage more marine scientific research in our ocean space, and we are pleased to take note of the upcoming Monaco research expedition during the last quarter of 2022. Moreover, we are also actively sourcing for technical assistance and pursuing alternative opportunities to conduct multidisciplinary research that would guide the development of emerging sectors such as marine biotechnology, with the aim of securing alternative and innovative sources of income to relieve pressure of our traditionally exploited resources. In this regard, I am pleased to convey that in Seychelles, we are currently implementing a project to establish the framework and lay the foundations to open up the marine biotechnology sector to small and medium enterprises. It is also noteworthy that we have just initiated the implementation of a project to integrate ocean science in our school curriculum. This, in combination with the ongoing nationwide Blue Economy sensitization campaign in schools, will raise increasing awareness on ocean-related matters. It is also anticipated that it will stimulate concerns and interest amongst the youth and younger generation in both ocean and science, such that in the future we may have increased the local capacity in those domains and also added a sense of continuity to our Blue Economy endeavors. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the headways that we have made with our Blue Economy agenda and that we expect and we strive to make throughout the Ocean Decade are all unfeasible in the absence of partnerships. Seychelles Blue Economy is the epitome of the transformative power of constructive partnerships. For how else could we, as an African SIDS, attain such notable feats, such as the issuance of the world's first sovereign bonds, finalization of the historic debt swap, and acquisition and joint management of an extended continental shelf that is almost the size of Germany. Hence, Seychelles truly welcomes opportunities for mutually beneficial collaborations and partnerships, and acknowledges that prospective avenues for such are plenty under the aegis of the Ocean Decade. For after all, the ocean is our common and shared global heritage. For after all, the ocean is our common and shared global heritage. It is through the ocean that we will get the world that we want. I thank you all for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Minister Joubert, for those words. And we're moving on now to the European perspective, to Scandinavia to be precise. Let's hear more about Sweden's role in the Ocean Decade, in particular about Alliance's importance of marine spatial planning and ocean literacy in the context of the Ocean Decade, and much, much more, of course. I give the floor to the State Secretary to the Swedish Minister for Climate and the Environment, Mr. Grönvall. Please.
Yes, Excellencies, ladies, gentlemen, ocean friends, of course I'm delighted to be here today. Let's start with some reflections why we are here in Lisbon these days. It's about not destroying the biodiversity of the seas in the same way that we have done on land. Because marine ecosystems are very complex. We don't know the full consequences of human impact. We have already seen destruction of the entire marine food webs on several places, with serious socio-economic consequences. We see this also in my own sea, home sea, the Baltic Sea, and the signals are very worrying. So science and innovation are needed, and they are the foundation for the urgent needed green, blue, and fair transition to a sustainable future. This was also discussed at the UN meeting Stockholm Plus 50 just a few weeks ago, hosted by Sweden and Kenya. The meeting clearly demonstrated that multilateral cooperation is more important than ever. This is evident when it comes to our joint work with the oceans. At the center of this transition is, of course, the oceans. The expectations on the oceans to contribute to global sustainable development is enormous. There is indeed great potential, but we need to ensure that the oceans and its resources are sustainably managed, conserved, and protected. Science-based policy making must guide this work. And that's why the UN Decade of Ocean Science is so important. It highlights the importance of the policy science society interface in decision making. Marine spatial planning touches all these dimensions. It's a valuable tool that contributes to a long-term sustainable development. In Sweden, we have put in place our first national marine spatial plans now in February this year. Ocean literacy is one of Sweden's priorities for the decade. An increased understanding of the seas, of the ocean, empowers you to make better decisions that are relevant to the marine environment. For example, urban planners have to consider how to organize waste management to minimize the creation of marine litter. The Alliance has a role to promote the Ocean Decade and mobilize actors and resources towards action. As a member of the Alliance, we will continue to use our network in the ocean community and engage in collaborations. We have a long-standing engagement with IOC UNESCO, and I'm pleased that we will continue to provide financial support for 2022 as a contribution to the Ocean Decade. Thank you.
Thank you very much, State Secretary Grönvall. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the next speaker, I know that the Ocean Decade is very close to his heart because I had the opportunity to watch and listen to him several times over the last 12 months during our 7 Ocean Decade laboratories. And I'm really happy to now be able to properly give the floor to Vladimir Rabinin, Executive Secretary of the IOC UNESCO. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, dear Monica. Yes, it's a great pleasure indeed, to see you, and you look even more charming than I thought it was on the screen. So State Secretary, Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I have to say that I was prepared a speech, so I will be able to make it in 3 minutes. I'm pretty sure about this. But and we all know what the decade is. And I think we all believe that we know where it should go. But what is the purpose of the forum? The decade started to be designed 6 years ago, 6 years plus, and there is basically nothing but a constant progress of thinking. And that co-design approach is central for the decade. So what is going to happen here is that there will be hearing from programs, projects, activities, and then I think what is going to happen after this is that you will start thinking about connections between different elements of the puzzle. And in the end, I hope very much, this collective brain will result in combination of activities that will be even more fruitful. In the end, I hope that from the ocean literate community, through the whole value chain of oceanography that starts with observations, research, assessments, we will be moving towards sustainable ocean planning. We had a wonderful meeting today, and I think engaging not only science, but also businesses, private sector, money, data people, and also politicians in the common process. So that is, I think, the future of the decade, and you will be shaping this. And I think 3 hours and 30 minutes, maybe already less, you will come out of this auditorium different people. You will be better prepared, I think, to co-design the decade, and this is what we are after. So the second thing, I just came from the interactive dialogue, and I think it was a lot of discussion there on transfer of marine technology. And, you know, people just didn't realize that, you know, that issue of transfer of marine technology is so important for developing countries. That is the cornerstone of the science research in the Convention of Climate Change. It's Convention on Law of the Sea. It's nothing but a decade. The decade can really create a mechanism for developing science and transfer of marine technology at the cutting edge and leaving no one behind. And finally, what I would like to say is that we are here to save the ocean. Our relations with the ocean are not harmonious. We overuse the ocean. We thought it was possible, and this is human nature. So my belief is that in relation to the ocean, in designing the decade and thinking about the future of the ocean decade, we will be creating better human relations with the ocean. And ocean will help us to be better people. That is very important now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Vladimir Rabinin, and thank you to all our high-level speakers. Thank you so much for taking the time, even if we only gave you the floor for very, very few minutes, but you certainly made the most of it. I can invite you now, obviously, to take your seats again and enjoy the next 2.5 hours, or move on to whatever important meetings you have next, but it was great to have you here. And before we start our first session, on knowledge and solutions for a clean, healthy, and productive ocean. Clean, healthy, and productive ocean. Let's just briefly remind ourselves why these issues are so important for the ocean decade. I've got a little video for it.
Increased carbon emissions are not only changing our climate, but also the chemistry of the ocean. Decreasing pH caused by ocean acidification is a global phenomenon that is putting marine ecosystems, organisms, and the resources we depend on under threat. As detailed by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, immediate action is needed. Since its formation in 2012, the Global Ocean Acidification Observing Network, or GOON, has grown to include 900 scientists from over 100 nations. It has 3 main goals:
to understand OA on local scales globally, its biological effects, and to facilitate the creation of tools that can forecast conditions allowing for adaptation strategies.
GOON has raised awareness of OA at the highest levels of international governance, but much more is needed. In support of the UN Decade of Ocean Science, GOON and partners defined Ocean Acidification Research for Sustainability, or OARS program, to set a clear vision. So what's needed?
We need to enable more people to measure and understand ocean acidification and its impacts in their local environment.
We need to invest in infrastructure. We need to develop new tools and technologies, working with industries to revolutionize status quo, enabling ready access to increase understanding of how ocean acidification plays out in local ecosystems.
And we need to buy time to invest in gaining and applying data in ways that allow humans adapt to changes from ocean acidification most effectively. We need to invest in data not only for now, but also to validate projections of future conditions, allowing climate-smart solutions.
Maintaining the status quo is just not good enough. Not for now, and most definitely not for the future. Please come and work with us to help build the ocean that we all want, the ocean that we need.
And you will have no doubt noticed by now that there has been a scene change. We have different people on stage now, our first session panelists and the moderator, Vidar Helgesen, who is the Executive Director of the Nobel Foundation and co-chair of the Decade Advisory Board. And Vidar, I told you when we had a little chat a couple of weeks ago beforehand that I noticed that you're actually tackling several Ocean Decade outcomes in this one session, all combined. Why? I'm not sure if this microphone is activated. Do we have a problem with this mic? Is it activated? It should
now
be working.
It's activated.
Yes.
Yeah. The big problem was there's a button here that.
Yeah, but this is why I'm asking these questions. It's basically a sound check.
No, this session is about knowledge and solutions for a clean, healthy, and productive ocean. And because the ocean can't be compartmentalized, we need to tackle everything at once. So. Hopefully this wasn't only a seat change, but can also be a sea change.
Exactly. No silos, and I know that you have a fantastic panel, and I'll leave you to it. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Pablo Neruda famously said, "I need the ocean because it teaches me." And we need more than ever today to be taught by the ocean. We need that knowledge and solutions for a clean, healthy, and productive ocean. Actually, this title is another way of formulating the motto for the Ocean Decade itself. The science we need for the ocean we want. And we do know that scientists can deliver the science we need, but it's actually up to decision makers in politics, industry, public affairs, whether we will end up with the ocean we want and the ocean we need. And at this session, we're joined by decision makers from politics, business, and public agencies. And the first to go, I'm happy to introduce. In your program, it does say the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans from Canada, Joyce Murray. You will see that the gentleman over there is not Joyce, but let us rejoice in welcoming him to the podium. Associate Deputy Minister for Fisheries and Ocean in Canada, Lawrence Hansen.
Thank you very much. And just to note that Minister Murray would have loved to have been here herself and sends her regrets. But I'm very happy to have this opportunity to join you today. As stewards of the ocean, we have a critical responsibility, which is to understand what is actually happening in current ocean conditions, how aquatic life is being affected, and how the impacts of climate change and human activity, because we know that our activities have disturbed the abilities of ocean, among other things, to be a climate regulator. Science provides the basis for all of our action, and that's why Canada has been from the beginning a proud member of the Ocean Decade and the Ocean Decade Alliance. It's a chance for us to work together across countries and across disciplines to understand and develop innovative solutions to the challenges we face. The department in which I work, Fisheries and Oceans, recently announced funding for 9 ocean-related projects, and these are projects that we continue to fund and work with the IOC to ensure that we're funding the most rigorous and valuable research as we go forward. I think one of the things that'll be most important to us is to just make sure that not only are we working and doing this new research and science, but also sharing it, making available, leveraging the activity we have by working in common cause together. And that's what a forum like this is so important to do and the work that's being done. So I thank you all for the invitation today, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you indeed, including for that announcement of generous contributions. Let's start with science, and we have with us here from the Mer Wissen Initiative, Program Manager Alexandra Gerritsen. In the Ocean Decade, we talk a lot about the need for co-design. I must admit, before coming to the advisory board of the Ocean Decade, I hadn't really heard that co-design word, so I had to learn what it is. But can you tell me with as a person with experience. What is it?
Sure, my pleasure. Is this on? Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I think we've heard co-design throughout this conference already, and let me preface what I'm about to say by just adding that there's different interpretations of it, and that at the same time is a problem. We use the same words, but we actually mean very different things. So I'm going to say what co-design means for Mehrwissen and for the initiative. We view it as an iterative and collaborative process. So it is a process, it's not a one-time thing. And you involve different types of expertise. So if you look at the academics that are involved in the research projects, those would need to be transdisciplinary. And then you add different types of knowledge and different types of actors. And you bring everybody to the table. And through that collaboration, you can then expect that the projects, as you're already collaborating on the design of them, so before they've even started, will actually produce context-specific knowledge. And that can then address concrete local issues and challenges. Now let me add on, or are you about to ask why this is so important for ocean science? We believe at the Mehrwissen Initiative that it leads to more quality in research. That can be because, on the one hand, the Mehrwissen Initiative requires its projects to be transdisciplinary, like I said already. So we challenge the scientists to think outside of their boxes and their typical frameworks and silos. We also ask them to bridge the science policy gap. So we envision a huge contribution to evidence-based decision-making through that bridging of the gap. And last but not least, we know that the projects that are implemented together with the stakeholders are not only tackling real-life issues, but they're also generally just more sustainable. And through that sustainability, you can then have a lasting impact. Thank you.
Thank you. When you do this co-design, you work with partners that are not necessarily at the same level of experience as German scientific institutions or ocean research institutions. How do you deal with the challenge of building capacity for co-design?
Yeah, so what we've done now, for the first time ever, our most recent call for project proposals has a specific 9-month co-design phase that is funded and fosters that collaboration and builds the capacities for co-design before the project even begins. And we had the pleasure to do this together with IAC UNESCO, and it was a joint co-branded call that was launched last year, and the projects are about to commence on their co-design phase now, this month and next month. And we, during those 9 months, we will be with them. We've written a guidance to help them along this process. And we've divided it up into 4 pillars, although, like I said, there's more ways to look at this. But we think it starts with a joint vision and a common understanding that you need to build within your team, within the project. So this is still internal. From that, you move to project management and you try to define roles and responsibilities and have an agreement on how you want to work together across continents and across cultures. Then you move into stakeholder engagement, and keep in mind, this is all before the project even starts. You bring everybody to the table to make sure you address local challenges. And last but not least, you plan for sustainability. So again, before the project starts, think about what happens after the project. What do you want to happen with your results, with your impacts? What happens to your networks? Those are all important aspects.
And you've been at this with African partners for some years now. What can you say so far about the outcomes of it?
Yeah, thank you. So we currently have 11 projects already running, and from the most recent call together with IAC UNESCO, we have a new 4 starting. And we have 1 project that has finished. So this is what I can tell you so far. They have developed a biodiversity action plan together with local NGOs and the government. So this is not helicopter science. They weren't sitting in Germany writing up the action plan. They were there on the ground talking with the people. And this action plan has now been picked up by BP, British Petroleum. And they have agreed to institute some sort of I'm lacking the word, but it's essentially a research panel that when they try to start their operations on the coast of Mauritania, that they will involve actual local scientists in this process.
Thank you. I want to go to Lawrence Hansen and ask, we've heard from science and the need to build capacity to produce science in different countries. Canada is a well-established country with a well-established ocean policy. But when you try to listen to science, there are always, of course, competing political interests and business interests. How do you reconcile this? Can you truthfully say that, yes, our policy is knowledge-based?
Thanks. Yeah, I think the reality is science is so central to what the government does in this and many other spaces, because science is the basis of legitimacy of action. All the things that we do, a lot of the decisions that we make, whether it be creating of marine protected areas or placing restrictions on fisheries and so forth, all have direct impacts on people's lives, and those impacts will sometimes be negative from an economic and social view. So the only legitimate way to do that is to demonstrate the extent to which you're basing it on science, and so that's in a kind of a day-to-day decision making. In terms of prioritizing it, I think, you know, it has become so important now because we have, and I think this was said by one of the earlier speakers, we have essentially for a long time taken the ocean's capacity to be a climate regulator for granted. And the problem is now we can't take that for granted, so we have to understand what's going on. We can't take any action until we understand what's happening. And so I talked about some of these projects that we're funding, and for example, like kelp forests, to what extent are they helping to mitigate climate change? If we don't have science, we don't have action. Or I guess I could say another way, if we don't have science, we could undertake foolish action, and that's certainly not what we want to do.
Now, we heard from Alexandra, you can keep your mic, I'm going to ask you one more question. We heard from Alexandra how they're working with science partners in Africa for science to be taken up by politics, by public administration and politics. Obviously, you need the capacity to do that as well. And with Canada's experience and apparatus and capacity in ocean planning, are you doing things to help other countries learn from your experiences or build capacity to make use of that science?
Sorry, can you repeat the last part again?
If in your development cooperation, for example, do you work with other countries to harness the Canadian experience for ocean planning, for the uptake of science in decision making?
Absolutely.
Because that's a challenge in many countries.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, you basically what you want to do is you have many of these partnerships as you can, right? So we're talking about the Ocean Decade Alliance here. We're a member of the Commonwealth Blue Charter, AORIA. I would say Canada is a joiner in a very good sense, because you know, there's a multiplication effect in all of this, and so we focus on science, but we also focus on science partnerships, and that is kind of, I'd say, built into the way that science policy works in Canada, including not just the government, but actually academic institutions as well. I think one of the key lessons to learn is that, or one of the things I guess I should say concerns me a little bit, and we always have to think about, is it's important to work internationally. It's important to collaborate and share information and data and observation and so forth. It's also just careful to have a somewhat coordinated way, so you're not duplicating effort, you're allocating resources to the maximum ability. So I think we're always bearing that in mind, as we want to have multilateral partnerships in as many different fora as we can, but also kind of do it in a coordinated way to the extent possible.
So from knowledge production in science to knowledge uptake in policy making, let's move to industrial uses of ocean knowledge. We have Brian Takeda, founder and CEO of Urchinomics. What on earth, or what in the ocean, is Urchinomics?
Yes. Well, thank you again for this opportunity, and thank you for the transition and reference of the kelp forest, because that is exactly what is at the heart of Urchinomics. Essentially, when you overfish the oceans without really taking into consideration the rest of the ecosystem, we often find that sea urchins will explode in population and overgraze entire kelp forests and seagrass meadows and turn them into lifeless, desert-like barrens. And because sea urchins are a very, very sophisticated species, they can essentially shut their metabolism down and stay in a starving state for decades or centuries, and essentially keep the ocean floor dead and desert-like. That is one of the common issues we have in countries like in Norway or in Eastern Canada, or in Australia, New Zealand, Japan. Anywhere where we have industrial fishing, we tend to have these urchin barrens, and these will persist. So what we do at Urchinomics is we specifically target those ecologically destructive urchins, and we remove them from the ocean floor, and we rehome them into our land-based recirculating aquaculture systems, where we effectively convert them from an ecological pest to one of the world's most premium seafoods, or uni, in a matter of 6 to 12 weeks. So as a result, a direct result of our commercial activities to maximize profitability by selling sea urchins, we are actually contributing to the restoration of kelp forests and seagrass meadows. We have commercial operations in Japan, we have pilots in Norway, Canada, the United States, as well as lab trials in Australia, New Zealand, and other places around the world, because we just don't have time to wait. The kelp forests, the scientists are saying 40 to 60% of the world's kelp forests are either declining or have already disappeared. Nobody knows about this crisis. So we really need to get that out there, and that's why I'm sitting here to get that message out there, and we're just one of the many solutions that are out there that are trying to fix this problem.
Fascinating. You're obviously an enthusiastic partner of the Ocean Decade, and you're combining understanding of the ecosystem functioning with seeking economic opportunity. Would you say that is a characteristic of the seafood industry in general?
It's a tough one to answer. I think that's where we need to be. For Urchinomics, we have physically tied our commercial profit-seeking activity directly to ecosystem restoration. So the more we succeed, the better the environment becomes. I think that is the future of the model that not just seafood companies, but any type of food production company needs to focus on, because for the last 150 years, we have dug such a deep hole for ourselves. Just sustainability is not going to cut it. We've got to dig ourselves out of it. And I think that that is the model that we should work with. And the way we've gotten to that business model with Urchinomics is entirely through science. It is the collaboration through research institutes like Nofima and NIVA in Norway, with Memorial University in Canada, with UC Davis in California, and all these research institutes that have provided the intellectual capacity to allow to deploy our business model context-specific to each region and to each of the ecologies that we work with. We don't have a one-solution-fits-all. It has to be adjusted, and it's that scientific partnership that allows us to do this.
Obviously, this sounds like a great idea from the point of view of nature, but what about investors and customers? Are they convinced?
Well, thank you for that opportunity to talk about that. So we've been very fortunate. We're funded by some of the biggest investors on the planet now. And the sea urchin roe that we produce from our commercial urchin ranch, we've achieved a market price of around $400 to $600 a kilogram, which is essentially at the super upper end of sea urchin roe prices. So far, so good.
Excellent. I think we'll give our panel an applause. Because I do think we have a video that we will be watching imminently.
Billions of people worldwide depend on marine life as their primary source of protein and sustenance. Even those that live far from the coast benefit from it for medicines, food, and the oxygen we breathe. Marine life also plays an important role in controlling coastal erosion and in the Earth's carbon budget. While marine life is being impacted by human development and our changing climate, information about species and living habitats is not readily available to local communities for planning and decision making.
I'm Claudia Barón Aguilar from the Wayuu indigenous tribe of the Guajira region in the Colombian Caribbean coast. And I'm here to tell you about Marine Life 2030, a UN Ocean Decade program to discover and understand marine life.
The vision of Marine Life 2030 is that anyone, anywhere will have access to marine life information important for their local fisheries, culture, health, and livelihoods. Through co-design, scientists, stakeholders, and local communities who depend on marine life will work together to solve local and bigger problems. The program also brings people together around best practices and technology to collect and share data in modern ways. We are building on the strength of a global consortium of partners united through the UN Ocean Decade, but solving this grand challenge requires resources. Investment will enable us to bring together diverse communities, learn from them, and develop capacity for local leadership. Also, to create opportunities for students and early career professionals across the globe to collaborate and solve problems that require knowledge about marine life.
I'm excited and proud to represent the needs of everyone in the world who rely on marine life information, and I ask you to join us realizing this vision. Thank you.
Over to you. Thank you.
Oh, over to me. Thank you so much, Vidar, and thank you so much to your fantastic panelists. I think a lot of things that were said need a little time to sink in. You remember that I mentioned a refreshment break earlier. I think this is a very good time to go for that. We've planned about 25 minutes, so try and pace yourself. Don't walk too far away. Ideally, I can invite you to visit the Ocean Art Gallery in the atrium just outside the auditorium. It's organized jointly by Schmidt Ocean Institute, Nautilus Magazine, and UNESCO in support of the Ocean Decade. And even though it's super interesting, please try to hurry back to your seats so that we continue in 25 minutes from now. The same, of course, for everyone joining us online. Whatever you do, gymnastics or go for a walk with your dog, be back in time for our next session, 1:45 p.m., when we will look at the essential infrastructure and innovation for ocean knowledge generation. So see you at 3:45, 3:45 p.m.
Let's think about all oceans as one, because it's intimately connected to our continents and to us. And it's one thing we simply can't live without. The ocean surrounding our planet provides us with food, habitats for animals and humans, and an ingenious water distribution system to our lakes, rivers, and streams, selflessly watering forests and farmland solely for our benefit. The ocean, owned by no one, is an incomparable wealth for all of us to share, and we need to care for its future for all the coming generations. Within the ocean lie resources and solutions to combat climate change, many yet to be discovered. To unfold its powers, we need to learn more, and everyone who is a receiver of its vast generosity needs to join forces in this venture. At the Universium Ocean Science Lab, we will embrace marine life and sustainability, and we will communicate maritime research to the broader public using the latest technology available. In combination with our unique educational experience and teaching environments, we will put this research in context. This interdisciplinary experience will demonstrate how the marine environment, the ocean, biodiversity, and the climate are intricately connected. We must make the ocean present in all our minds, because a sound marine life and sustainability go hand in hand, and we must support this understanding in academia, business, and society. After all that it has done for us, let's discover what we can do for the ocean. At Universium, We are proud that the Ocean Science Lab is the first chosen initiative in Sweden to become a part of the UN's Decades of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development.
Working on a research vessel can be very intense. The crew and the scientists can be at sea for months on end.
If I'm having a difficult time, I don't have anywhere else to go. I'm still on the ship.
There are challenges, and those are often around the way people treat you.
There are several factors in making a workplace comfortable for everyone.
So we need to create an environment where people feel safe.
All staff needs to be valued, respected.
It's where we live and work, and so it's important to have boundaries.
It's not okay to exclude me from a research ship because you're not comfortable with my gender, race, or sexuality.
But it is okay to offer berths on ships to the most qualified people.
It is not okay to joke or comment about my sexuality. You cannot really expect that I will be okay with that.
But it is okay to talk to me about my life choices and how I feel.
It's not okay to follow me around the ship or into confined spaces.
It's not okay for you to touch me, kiss me, or ask me to have sex with you.
It is okay to ask me if somebody is bothering me and to offer support.
It's not okay to treat me badly because you think I am different than you.
It is okay to talk to me. You might find that we're not that different.
We all have to respect each other's boundaries and differences.
We all need to feel safe and respected on board.
Really, it's simple. It's just about respect.
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 Respect. Respect.
Respect.
Respect.
Respect.
Respect.
With 2 billion people relying on its resources, the East Asian seas have nourished rapid economic growth over the past decades, which has unfortunately occurred at the expense of ocean health. Led by Xiamen University, the UN Ocean Decade endorsed project Coastal SOS partners cross-sectoral stakeholders from East Asian countries to advance scientific understandings of critical coastal ocean health issues.
Coastal SOS is aiming for transform science into solutions, including integrated ocean management approach to be adapted in the regional sustainable strategy, as well as to empower the industry sector to adopt best practice for sustainable development.
Through interdisciplinary research, we will examine the trajectories of 6 model East Asian coastal ecosystems over the past 50 years and predict their future 30-year direction. The expected outcomes of Coastal SOS are a novel partnership across leading academic institutions, industrial enterprises, non-profit foundations, and NGO and IGOs by adopting an all-through co-design and co-delivery approach. A problem-driven and solution-oriented observational network and data platform, and a couple numerical modeling system that has diagnostic and predictive capabilities. A decision-making support system and toolbox aided by numerical modeling and the Digital Twin Ocean initiative that will result in integrated coastal management and development of marine spatial planning and ecosystem conservation practices.
I'm very excited to join Coastal SOS Youth to work for ocean sustainability of coastal zones.
This will encourage professional skill in terms of multidisciplinary ocean science research in the region.
We all look forward for the better benefits of coastal ecosystem and human society with the efforts of our younger generation.
We're hoping to get support from all of you out there. Obviously, this is the science we need for the ocean we want.
If you want to explore mysteries, you have to be brave. We don't know that much about the ocean. It's always been good at keeping secrets. Right now, not enough people have the courage to explore it. The ocean is big. How big? So big that we haven't mapped more than 20% of it. Exploration used to be about men on a risky journey, wanting better understanding, returning to tell heroic tales. That has changed. Now, exploration is about data sharing. It's a whole new way of seeing, but it is still risky. It's the risk of getting it wrong. How far have we come in using the power of data? Well, data sets are often old, or data is in low resolution. Data on emissions may be kept private, or data is unstructured. Policymakers, scientists, and industry are all struggling to make decisions based on limited access to information. A lot of the time, they only see data from a small piece of the puzzle. They only see their own aquarium. What happens if we fail to share what we know? The ocean is crucial for everyone on the planet. It produces more than half your oxygen and absorbs a third of the CO2. More and more food will have to come from the ocean. It's our biggest farmland by far. It's also our biggest transportation system. And a place for future renewable energy. The problem is, the ocean's health has been in decline for far too long. Even though the ocean is vast, marine life is living in the same space as dense traffic, commercial fishing, and industrial energy production. If you want to build an offshore wind farm or use the ocean's resources, you need to prove that life in the ocean remains unaffected. If you want to increase the size of fish stocks, you need dynamic no-take zones. If you want to avoid toxic algal bloom attacking your fish farm, you should be able to predict when that will happen. Explore the ocean by liberating your data. And join us.
The Twilight Zone is the most exciting and important place you have never heard of. 200 meters beneath the ocean surface, where sunlight runs out, the Twilight Zone begins. It is a vast, earth-spanning ecosystem teeming with life. But what is so special about the Twilight Zone? It witnesses one of the largest migrations in the natural world, every day. Each dusk, in all oceans, phenomenal numbers of creatures, shrimps, fish, squid, rise hundreds of meters to feed near the surface, returning to depth at dawn. The Twilight Zone is also crucial to how the ocean takes up and stores carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Extraordinarily, the Twilight Zone is still largely pristine, but pressures are mounting. Deep-sea mining, fishing, climate change, and proposed interventions to suck carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere all threaten it.
We must understand the beauties and benefits of the Twilight Zone, and we must ensure this information gets to the policymakers and managers who control its fate before it's too late. This is the aim of Jetson. Here are just two examples of how your support could help. Many young ocean scientists never get the opportunity to join an expedition at sea, such as this one, despite spaces being available. Your support could help us connect spaces to those who benefit from it most, building experience in more countries, supporting careers for future scientists, managers, and policymakers. Argo floats, like this one, are a revolutionary fleet of satellites in the ocean. And camera systems, like this one, can capture creatures that are smaller than the thickness of a human hair, in color, in the pitch black deep ocean. Your support will allow us to install these cameras on the Argo fleet, giving us eyes to see the Twilight Zone all around the world.
There are many other ways we could work together to create a sustainable approach to the twilight zone. Please get in touch with us to explore the possibilities. Thank you.
The Ocean Biomolecular Observing Network, or OBON for short, is developing a collaboration that will give science and society an unprecedented understanding of global ocean life. Ocean life, from viruses to whales, is built from biomolecules, the basic building blocks of life. OBON's vision is that all ocean observing systems will become capable of detecting these biomolecular signatures of ocean life. In turn, this will open new horizons for understanding, managing, and conserving the living ocean.
Biomolecules such as DNA infuse every drop of ocean water. The UN Ocean Decade recognizes that the ocean faces multiple stressors, including pollution, habitat loss, overfishing, and climate change. OBON will transform how we sense, protect, and manage ocean life using molecular tools. Some of these tools can be adapted for use in developing nations with limited resources. A global coordinated network that builds capacity in all regions will be critical to revolutionize biomolecular observing of the ocean.
OBON has only just started, but there are some interesting projects on the way. OBON will help communities detect biological hazards that are detrimental to the way we live, such as harmful algal blooms, which are a risk to our ocean food sources, and pathogens that can make us sick. OBON can also help us assess food security, detect invasive species, maintain and restore biodiversity, assess species health within food webs, look at wastewater incursions, and antibiotic resistance.
Intercalibration and standardization of methods will be key to the success of biomolecular monitoring and research. Aligned methods, from planning expeditions to sharing and analyzing our data, will support collective action across projects and partners and help us gain an understanding of how ocean life is changing globally. By bringing together projects and partners under a shared vision, OBON will help achieve the aspirations of the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development.
The ECOP programme serves as the backbone
backbone organisation for enabling global ECOP engagement with all the activities of the Ocean Decade. Our objective is that ECOPs become an essential part of all programmes, actions and activities, and to recognise their contributions throughout the decade. Our activities will serve to curate the global story of how ECOPs are leading the way. Our outputs include the creation of a network of networks to build a global community of ECOPs. We will also expand opportunities for capacity development, with special emphasis on building skills to bridge science to action. We will continue our activities related to ocean literacy and youth engagement to inspire the next generation to learn and care about the ocean. Finally, we will look for opportunities to stimulate exchanges with the private sector to accelerate the use of science and technology to solve real-world problems. The ECOP programme is all about intergenerational diversity and how the next generation of ocean leaders can pave the way for a more inclusive and equitable use of science to drive sustainable development. We want to place special emphasis on giving opportunities to ECOPs from countries that have not traditionally had access to them. Our programme aims to reach out to a generation regardless of the ocean basin they live in or ocean sector they work in. This is certainly not an easy task, but one that we must commit to, since we all know by now that working in geographic or disciplinary silos will not help us generate the science we need for the ocean we all want.
The ocean is my home, is my happy place. My biggest passion is to be in the ocean. During my 15 years as a professional surfer, I've seen a lot of changes in the ocean, a lot more plastic, less life. It breaks my heart. The ocean is facing enormous challenges, from habitat destruction to overfishing. It's something we have to act on now. If we all act for a healthy ocean, we can make massive changes. Gen Ocean, for the ocean we need.
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, everyone. And let's try to find our seats and settle down for part 2 of the Decade Forum here in Lisbon this afternoon. I told you it's going to be a very exciting exhibition out there, but it'll still be there after this session and the next one, indeed. Because you can see we have our next panelists here on stage already, and of course also the moderator of this panel, Jyotika Virmani, the Executive Director of the Schmidt Ocean Institute, who is actually responsible for this exhibition out there, and co-chair of the Ocean Decade Technology and Innovation Informal Working Group. And I wanted to know a little bit more about Jyotika, so I started to Google her, and I wanted to pick something that's really cool, and it was a whole page full, and it was all cool. So I just basically decided that you're a technology ace. And I believe that you probably will bring the case that technology could save the ocean. Could this be right?
Yes. The first test was, could I turn the microphone on, really, wasn't it?
Well done, well done. It can only get better from now on. Best of luck.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you very much. And I want to welcome everyone here to this Ocean Decade Forum on the penultimate day of the UN Ocean Conference. And I have to say, it's very nice to see people in 3 dimensions. So welcome to those of you who are here in the overflow room, and for those who are tuning in, sorry, we're still in 2 dimensions for you. Arthur C. Clarke said, "It is our great good fortune to be born in the age that opened the door into the sea. And now at last we've discovered how to re-enter for as long or as short a period as we wish the element in which we were born." And the key to opening our doorway to the sea is, of course, technology, which now permits us to observe and understand the ocean and its inhabitants. So with its vision of the science we need for the ocean we want, the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development offers a really unique opportunity for diverse actors for co-design and co-deliver solution-oriented ocean knowledge, the ocean knowledge that we need to sustain our shared ocean. And a critical element to achieving the goals, the science and the sustainable development of the Ocean Decade, depends on our ocean infrastructure, which is, of course, based on continuing advances in innovation. So I'm going to jump to our wonderful panel here. I see joining me on this panel to discuss a range of infrastructure and innovation as it intersects with the ocean. At the end there is Nicole LeBoeuf, Assistant Administrator for the United States National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's National Ocean Service. She's still working, I think, answering emails. Work never ends. I also have next to her, sitting there, is Merete Tanstad, Senior Program Coordinator of the EAF Nansen Program in the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations. Next to Merete is Professor Nadia Pinardi from the University of Bologna, Director of the Decade Collaborative Center for Coastal Resilience, which we'll get to. And next to Nadia is Dr. Enrique Alvarez from the Mercator Ocean International and Technical Coordinator of the Decade Collaborative Center for Ocean Prediction. But before we get into this panel discussion, I actually want to invite someone else onto the stage, just because I'm greedy. I would actually like to invite Brad Ack onto the stage. Brad is the Director of Ocean Visions, and I've mentioned 2 Decade Collaborative Centers. Well, last week, the Ocean Decade announced 6 of them, and I'm very lucky to have with me on stage 3 of those here. And Brad is going to tell us, congratulations, Brad, by the way, on the center there. Please, can you tell everyone in a few minutes what the center's about?
Thank you, Jyotika, and thanks everybody. I am the Executive Director of Ocean Visions, which is a small NGO that sits at the center of quite an extraordinary network of research and academic and oceanographic institutions who are partnering with accelerators, investors, technologists, marine managers, and others to try to accelerate the development of critically needed solutions, ocean climate solutions. And we are proud to have been designated as a Decade Collaborative Center under the UN Decade for Ocean Sciences, and our center is called the Center for Ocean Climate Solutions. All of our partners are involved, but I want to especially recognize Georgia Tech and the Georgia Aquarium, who've made lead gifts to make this center possible, and will be housing the center at the Georgia Aquarium in Atlanta. So I just want to take a few minutes to talk about ocean climate solutions. We talk a lot about observation, about knowledge, about adaptation, about resilience, but we don't spend as much time as we should, in my opinion, on actual solutions. Are there things we can do to reverse the incredible damage that we see in the ocean, which is being caused by the climate crisis? The two biggest threats to the ocean, in my view, bar none, are thermal stress and chemical stress, both of which are coming from a buildup of legacy carbon pollution in the atmosphere. On one hand, driving an enormous amount of heat into the ocean, an unfathomable amount of heat that's unraveling ocean ecosystems. The second, driving directly acidity into the upper layer of the ocean. Our organization has been working with people around the world to identify, test, and develop technologies that can remove carbon from the atmosphere and the upper layer of the ocean. At the end of the day, there's only going to be one thing that gets the ocean back on a sustainable path, and that is reducing the number, parts per million, of atmospheric concentration of CO2. There's only two ways to do that. We can turn off the flow, which we've been valiantly trying to do for 4 decades. We're failing. We need to keep at it. We need some new tools. One of those is to actually pull carbon out of the air and out of the water. So the Center for Ocean Climate Solutions is going to be working now under the UN Decade with partners from all over the world, hopefully many governments, on the testing and development of these approaches. We don't know whether they work. We do know that we have to answer the question of whether they will. So I invite all of you to join me with this new Center for Ocean Climate Solutions and to work together on actually solving the climate crisis in the ocean. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brad. Very important. Thank you so much, Brad, for that. So without much further ado, I'm going to get to the discussion that we have with the panel here. And my first line of questioning is around your work and how using innovation to provide critical infrastructure for the ocean. So, Nicole, I'm going to start with you. So ocean observations are the bedrock of ocean science. What is NOAA's role in providing that infrastructure, and are there any key gaps in the observation systems today?
Well, thank you, Jodica, for having me. First of all, it's really wonderful to be here. I am so privileged to be at NOAA and at the helm of the National Ocean Service. And to be here, I'm learning so much about all of the international efforts associated with observing systems and infrastructure. At NOAA, I oversee many, although not all, of NOAA's ocean observing and coastal observing programs, and we work closely with entities across NOAA to really integrate and cross-fertilize as much as possible. Earlier this week, I had the honor of participating in an event kicking off the Marine Life 2030, saw the video earlier, as a part of the UN Decade, and I'm just really grateful to be here with all you. And you said we wanted to shake it up a little bit, right? So I'll give one of my statements that my team's really getting tired of hearing from me. Because I truly and firmly and sincerely believe that ocean and coastal observations, they're informative, that's great, they're data, but that if we use them to the fullest extent, getting to the question that you got earlier, across sectors, across society, that ocean and coastal data will provide not just essential, but existential insights into the way humanity is going to prepare for climate change and climate adaptation, whatever flavor of adaptation you prefer. And so I am on a complete soapbox and high horse about ocean observations these days. I just got back from the meeting with the Reinsurance Association of America, all I talked about was ocean observations, and they ate it up, right? Because they're smart people, but they didn't realize that the ocean is coming for them in their portfolios. So now they do. But NOAA does play a major role domestically, and NOS, the Ocean Service, oversees the U.S. Integrated Ocean Observing System Program, or IUS. So nationally, we coordinate that across the United States, and we contribute globally to GOOS, of course, and the GOOS Regional Alliance. We have, as many of you do, Argo floats, drifters, more buoys, shore stations, gliders, satellites, animal telemetry, so forth and so on. And of course, coastally, we have water level sensors that are measuring the tick-tock of sea level rise in the United States. So we have contributions to GOOS, and we work with GOMO, and we have so many wonderful infrastructure and assets and capabilities at our fingertips in the United States. We're very, very fortunate. But, and we have gaps in all of those systems. Right? I could always ask for more sensors and more replacement and update of sensors when they get tired and worn out. But the gap that we're focusing on so much now across NOAA in our services is that gap of accessibility and equitable service delivery to people. Right? It is not enough, and we know this across NOAA, it is not enough to collect information and throw it out there in the world and see what happens. Right? When our National Weather Service produces a forecast, or a hurricane or a tornado warning, they're not doing that for a few people. They're doing it for everybody in harm's way, right? And we fully believe that across NOAA, we have to adopt a fully service equitable delivery approach. We have to be asking over and over again, what do you need? Did it work for you? Did you make a decision on it or not, and why? And be humble and be listening and be ready to change course when it's not being used for lives and livelihoods. So I hope that shook it up a little bit.
Thank you very much, Nicole. I think we'll hear more about the fundamental, not only the gaps, but the need for people to be very much involved in all of this. I do want to move on to actually talking a bit more about the Decade Collaborative Centres. As I said, 3 of the 6 were here on stage. We heard from 1. I want to also congratulate Enrique, who's sitting right next to me, because and your team on the Decade Collaborative Centre for Coastal Prediction. So following on from what Nicole was saying. So Enrique, can you tell us a bit more about your Decade Collaborative Centre?
Thank you very much. I think I'm really super happy of being here. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce to all of you this Decade Collaborative Center for Ocean Prediction. Decade Collaborative Center for Ocean Prediction is basically a coordination structure that will deal with ocean forecasting activities during the decade. We will work together with other Decade Collaborative Centers, like the one on coastal resilience that will be led by Nadia, with related actions dealing with ocean forecasting. And we will mainly have 2 families of objectives, 2 big kind of objectives. On one hand, we will build a community forum, so all our community about ocean forecasting could be in contact, could talk to each other, could learn from each other. We are understanding this community in a very wide sense. We are understanding from the private sector to the public sector, from the deep ocean to the coastal, from biogeochemistry to physics, etc. So we want to put all this community in contact and having this common point so they can talk and learn from each other. On top of that, we will develop capacity building and ocean literacy activities. We will join with other stakeholders to do so. For example, we will link with the expert team on ocean forecasting system. I don't know, there should be a slide there, that one. Thank you very much. And I invite you to use this QR code to download this ETUFS guide. That this is the kind of things that we will do together with these stakeholders like ETUFS. The second objective that we will aim for is a more technical. It's a family of more technical objectives. We will work together to, in collaboration with the Decade Actions, to create a new scenario for ocean forecasting where we will be able to deliver as one, and we will have in the horizon the concept of digital twinning. If we achieve this objective, it will be much more easier in the future to develop new systems that will be more robust, that will be ready to be used by society, and it's a completely new scenario, considering the advantage that digital twinning could provide to us. So if I have to summarize in one sentence what we are going to do, is we are going to work towards getting the ocean prediction we need.
Great, thank you. So, and as you have already alluded to Nadia's centre, I'm going to move on to actually asking Nadia the same question, and congratulations on your Decade Collaborative Centre for Coastal Resilience. So, Nadia, would you like to say a few words about that?
Thank you. Very happy to be here and contributing, hopefully, to one of the aims of the decade, that is translating the new science into new products for coastal resilience. I would like to start to say and acknowledge the people who have supported this center. It's a bit of an example, maybe for other people to follow the same street. We need a lot of DCCs, or Decade Collaborative Centers. We are we are located at University of Bologna as a center, but we are financed by the regional government of Emilia-Romagna to fulfill the strategy of this region that uses technology, big data and knowledge to achieve the goals of 2030 agenda. So they saw into the center a way to have more international connections to support their strategy for reaching the Sustainable Development Goals. I hope this is an example that others will follow and maybe coordinate, if they want, on coastal resilience with us. We need a lot of centers for coastal resilience if we want to achieve for the global coastal ocean. We naturally will work primarily with the existing DCCs that are Ocean Visions and the Ocean Prediction, and we have also the new one to come from China on ocean climate. But clearly, in order to tackle the problem of coastal resilience, we need to undertake a discussion with a larger community of stakeholders. So, to complete this first part, I think that we would like to be a center that takes the science produced by the decade and the technology produced by the decade to the benefit of the coastal communities, engaging the coastal stakeholders into the discussion and co-designing from the beginning. Let's see how it goes. Please help us, be with us. You will be contacted. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia. And so speaking of coastal communities and communities around the world, I'm going to move on to actually asking Marete to tell us a bit more about the Nansen program, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Is it working? Yeah, perfect. So thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about the EF Nansen program in this great event. We are also one of the UN Ocean Decade programs, so we are very proud to be able to contribute. I am based at the Fisheries and Aquaculture Division of the Food and Agriculture Organization. It is the coordinating unit of the program, but we work with 32 countries in Africa and in the Bay of Bengal in promoting the ecosystem approach to fisheries, but also in terms of securing food and nutrition security for the countries that we work with. And in this context, we have sort of three main areas of work. So working on fisheries management. Some of you might have been at the launch of the State of World Fisheries and Aquaculture of FAO yesterday, and you heard that in order to achieve blue transformation, fisheries management is one of the key elements. So we work with the countries to try to advance fisheries management at the different levels, from policy, legal issues, to practical implementation of fisheries management plan and setting up fisheries management cycles. The other area of work is in terms of research and science. Providing the knowledge base for decision making and policy making. And the key tool that we have in this regard is the research vessel Dr. Fridtjof Nansen. This is operated in collaboration with the Institute of Marine Research of Norway, and it's fully available to the program. And in fact, it operates almost full-time all year around with the partner countries that we work with. And then the third area of work is capacity development, so building the capacity through either short-term technical support, or also we have now 9 students who are working with us to implement what we have as we call our science plan, which is also deciding on the types of science that we do under the program. So this is broadly a bit about the Nansen program, which is one of the longest running projects actually in FAO. It started in 1974, so a very long legacy.
Thank you very much, Merete, for telling us about that. So I have a challenge for our panelists here, as we have 3.5 minutes left, and I had another question for all of you. So the challenge is to answer this in less than a minute. So I'm going to go to Merete, as you've already got the microphone. What does, from your perspective, the opportunities provided by bringing this research vessel that you mentioned, what does that bring to countries around the world?
So I think it's a unique opportunity. Many of the countries that we work with, they do not have the opportunity or they do not have access to this type of infrastructure. So it provides them with the possibility of participating in collecting information and knowledge, but also doing the follow-up research. So in terms of the research that is done, they're also contributing to this. So I think it's a unique opportunity, and it's give them a sort of empowerment in terms of knowledge.
Great, thank you. Nicole, quick, this is the quick round here.
Yeah, sure.
How does NOAA work to ensure that scientific information is accessible for communities and actionable?
Yeah, so at NOAA, we are fairly unique in the U.S. government, particularly for science agencies, as we are highly distributed. We have offices and people in states and counties around the country working on a wide range of environmental issues and prediction. And we're also unique in the federal government in the United States in that we have the words observe and predict very prescient in our mission statement, which is quite old, right? But also for the purpose of protecting lives and livelihoods. So never more is that going to be important. And I will say something that we adopt in coastal community engagement is that we absolutely have to move at the speed of trust. And if people do not trust or understand the applicability of the data, slow down, figure it out. It's on you, right, to determine and identify how they can use it and take it up, and that takes time. That takes work.
Good point. So bouncing off that to Enrique, do you want to get the microphone? So why is an enhanced capacity to predict ocean conditions essential?
Well, it's essential because, first of all, the ocean is a very complicated system. We are linking different temporal and spatial scale, many sectors from chemistry to biology. Then it's very important for our culture, it's very important for our economy, it's very important for our society. And finally, we need to have the tools to solve the threats that are risking our ocean. We have climate change, we have acidification, overexploitation of the oceans. If you put all these things together, the result is pretty obvious. We need the best tools to find information-based solutions to deal with that. And the right place to do that is the decade.
Thank you. And the last word is going to Nadia, which is, my question is, where should we be focusing our efforts for the Ocean Decade to increase coastal resilience?
I have time for our motto.
Okay.
Our motto is the power of science at the service of coastal communities, better informed, better prepared.
And with that, I would like to thank the panel. So I believe we've been showing, by the way, the videos that we've been showing are endorsed ocean action videos. And we have one coming up now, and that is called Observing Together, and it's on this very topic. So let's cue the video.
For coastal communities across the globe, lives and livelihoods are inextricably connected to the ocean. The ocean provides food, transport, protection, inspiration, and is central to local identities and cultural heritage. Many of these communities are the most vulnerable to ocean changes caused by climate change, pollution, and other human activities. This is particularly true for those in least developed countries and small island states. Accurate ocean information and forecasts are critical for safety at sea, sustainable fisheries, coastal planning, and disaster mitigation. But across the globe, many communities are unable to access ocean data in a way that is truly useful to enable informed decisions. At the same time, many existing efforts to monitor and understand ocean change are isolated. These are missed opportunities to contribute to an integrated global system, strengthening predictive models and understanding our ocean. In answer to these issues, the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development has endorsed the Observing Together program. Observing Together aims to transform ocean data access and availability. Its goals are threefold: to help new and existing ocean observing initiatives connect to the global ocean observing system, to provide opportunities for capacity building and knowledge sharing, and most importantly, to ensure data contributes to tailored and actionable information at the local level. By supporting this program, you can work in partnership with the Global Ocean Observing System and communities around the world to respond to user priorities. These priorities include deploying new ocean monitoring equipment, connecting data through global systems, and delivering tools and training to support community resilience. Help us think globally and act locally to make every observation count.
So I'd like to now invite a couple of interventions. The first one's by Justin Manley, Senior Advisor for Oceankind, and also, fortunately or unfortunately for him, I'm not sure, he's the co-chair with me on the UN Ocean Decade Technology and Innovation Informal Working Group. Justin.
Thank you, Jyotika. Good afternoon. Very happy to be here on behalf of my colleagues on the working group. And I realize we are listed as announcements, so I'm announcing that we exist. All right. I probably should tell you a little bit more about what that means. We're a diverse global team of technologists, entrepreneurs, and engineers. We've come together because we're eager to inform and advise the decade, and in fact, all of you, the wider global ocean community. We recognize and we emphasize that advances in technology and new innovations arise much faster than the scientific process or public policy development. Therefore, we need to ensure an effective interface across these sectors for critical and successful ocean solutions. Over the course of the decade, technology and new innovations are going to inform scientific understanding. That understanding will shape public and private sector solutions for the ocean we want and need. Technology will then arise again and be part of delivering those solutions and create that ocean. The working group aims to imagine the future of our ocean planet, envision the path to that future, and then enable it through equitable, sustainable, and impact-driven solutions. Our efforts will be collegial and continuously evolving, and we look forward to working with all of you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. And then the second intervention is by David Miller, Government Accounts Director for the Americas FUGRO, who will be talking about a new joint FUGRO-IOC Corporate Ocean Data Group.
Yep. Thank you, Jyotika, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here. For those that aren't aware, FUGRO is the world's leading geodata specialist, and we acquire, analyze, and provide advice on geodata to our public and private sector clients in support of their resource and infrastructure development projects around the world. And we were an early participant in the planning of the Ocean Decade and tried to bring a private sector perspective to the planning activities of the decade in support of the implementation plan. In September 2021, we signed a partnership with IOC that was aimed at transforming the coordination of global ocean science data, including improved access to private sector data in support of the Ocean Decade. Today, the Ocean Decade Forum here, I'm pleased to announce the formation of the Ocean Decade Data Coordination Group, and it will be responsible for developing strategies, equitable frameworks, best practices for private sector organizations to support public access to their ocean science data within the context of the Ocean Decade. The goal of the group is quite simple. We want to create an enabling environment that will stimulate and accelerate partnerships and collaboration opportunities to the benefit of all parties. The private sector is obviously very active in the development of sustainable ocean economy and represents an important stakeholder and partner in the Ocean Decade, both as a generator and user of ocean science data. Companies understand that employees, shareholders, customers, suppliers, and society expect them to contribute to a sustainable future, and participation in the Ocean Decade provides a powerful mechanism to ESG commitments. The time and conditions are right to leverage ocean science data being generated in the private sector to help facilitate access to data in support of the Ocean Decade. This group will be chaired by IOC Executive Secretary Vladimir Rybin and Fugro CEO Mark Heine, and it will be made up of approximately 15 companies who are forward-leaning on ocean sustainability and who own, understand, and appreciate the value of ocean science data. If you're in the private sector and you fit this profile and you want to help create a safe and livable world, please let us know and join the movement. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Fantastic. We've got everything: technology, innovation, data. Monica. We have Monica.
And I miss technology standing in front of you. No, thank you, Jodika, that was fantastic. Also, to the panelists again, a big thank you. And then last but not least, to the 3 announcements we've had just in this session, and I can tell you that there are more to come, as is another Ocean Action video before the next session. So let's watch this together. It's on ocean cities.
75% of the world population live within 50 kilometers of the coast, and these coastal cities are bound to suffer multiple stressors. These are the areas where the rapid population growth is combined with environmental and socio-economical crises. The Ocean Decade is an opportunity to address these challenges, bringing together decision-making, science and society, to move from the ocean we have to the ocean we want, for the ocean cities of the future. Ocean Cities Network emerges to create a better relationship with the ocean, connecting research centers with local administrations and civil society. It is a collaborative and bottom-up network by and for the people. Ocean Cities aims to fill the knowledge gap, foster the blue and sustainable economy, and encourage citizens to embrace the ocean. Ocean Cities works in global health approach, cultural connections with the ocean, and fair and just transition into a new economy. We are 26 members around the world.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, yes, definitely. Changing humanity's relationship with the ocean. That is not only a tall order, this is also the title of the next session, which will be in the safe hands of Taylor Gertz. She's the program manager for the Energy and Environment Program's Shipping Decarbonization Initiative for the Aspen Institute and the host of the Ocean Decade podcast, which you may have followed already. She spent a few days already here in Lisbon, being very busy. And I mean, talking about changing humanity's relationship with the ocean, what needs to change? Yep.
You think we would have figured this out by the third one, but what doesn't need to change? You know, in some regards, we I don't actually have fun quotes to start off my session. I didn't know we were doing that, guys. We should have coordinated that. But humanity's relationship with the ocean is deeply personal. And I'm really excited to talk to my panelists today about their work and understand how we transform that personal relationship with the ocean that I think all of us in this room and listening online have into a collective global relationship with the ocean in a way that helps us achieve the Ocean Decade goals and the 2030 agenda.
Then I won't steal another second of this very important panel. Off you go.
Yeah, we have too much fun stuff to talk about. Yeah, like we said, this is the Changing Humanity's Relationship with the Ocean, and we'll focus on solutions during the Ocean Decade, which can inspire behavior change and ensure that no one is left behind as we move toward 2030. Because I think the really crucial part of the statement that I think we all keep hearing, the ocean we want, who is the we? You know, we have to be really thoughtful in how we define that we and be really inclusive when we define that we. And so I'm really excited to have a panel that kind of spans different sectors and is really thinking about the we in many different ways. So I'm going to start off with Teresa, who joined us 37 hours or something like that, you said, from Australia. That's the one. The virtual would have been a little bit easier for you than making your way, but thank you for coming all the way out to Lisbon for this session, the Executive Director of Projects and Partnerships at the Great Barrier Reef Foundation. So can you tell us a little bit about the Foundation's Reef Recovery Program, which, congratulations, is an endorsed contribution to the decade?
Great, and I'm hoping I'm on, yes? Excellent. Thanks so much, Taylor. It is great to be here, and don't feel too sorry for me. I did actually come a week early and had a break on Madeira Island, so, you know, I don't think I can get much sympathy.
Okay.
So Reef Recovery 2030, it is a science-led program that really focuses on urgently developing practical solutions for the big issues that are facing coral reefs. And of course, coral reefs are really on that very front line of climate change. The program focuses on acting on climate with a strong focus on blue carbon. I made an announcement in the main session on Monday on that. Also looks at restoration and adaptation, particularly of coral reefs, but also associated habitats, improving water quality and restoring islands and coasts. We work not just on the Great Barrier Reef, but also in Ningaloo, in Palau, in Belize, and New Caledonia as well. So we do have a global portfolio. The Reef Recovery Program is intentionally ambitious, and it needs to be, because coral reefs need us to be hugely ambitious at this point in time, and not just in our words, but in our actions. There's two underpinning themes in the Reef Recovery Program. One is innovation, and that is looking at how do we dramatically accelerate on-ground action, and secondly, how do we dramatically scale that on-ground action. And just to give you an example of the sort of ambition that we need for coral reefs, currently we have the capacity to grow around 10,000 thermally tolerant corals per year. In order to, maybe up to 100,000, but to get to where we need to go with driving and accelerating adaptation on the Great Barrier Reef, we need 10 million corals per year. That is a huge step change and a huge ambition. But the second underpinning theme of the Reef Recovery Program is all about people. And I think it won't be news to anyone in this room that if we are to successfully turn the tide on the decline of coral reefs, we must not just harness minds, but we have to actually capture hearts. And that means working with local communities, placing traditional owner communities and First Nations communities at the heart of all of the work that we do, because it is only by collectively working together and achieving collective impact that will actually be able to deliver the change that we need to see for coral reefs.
Exactly, because corals are going to do what they're going to do. We have to manage humans, that we're the ones that need management in ocean systems. It's not the coral, it's not the fish, it's not the other species. So you mentioned, you know, working with indigenous and local populations. So how does the work of the Endorsed program, but then also the foundation overall, you know, embrace that knowledge and use it as a really key source of knowledge for your work?
So we're doing First Nations work in a global context, but today I'm just going to focus on the work on the Great Barrier Reef. And together with the Australian Government, we are funding a really significant traditional owner-led reef protection program. This program very much builds on the unique perspectives that our traditional custodians bring through their lived experiences. And it also very much recognises the inherent and the inextricable connection of traditional owners to country. And that's something that when I travel internationally, I find people sort of say, what do you mean by connection to country? And that very strong and deep connection to land, to sea and to sky. Bringing together traditional knowledge systems is something that I think many groups are really trying to achieve. What we have learned is bringing together traditional and Western knowledge systems is absolutely not a one-size-fits-all approach. It is not a one-size-fits-all approach for a number of reasons. Firstly, traditional owners and First Nations peoples are inherently system thinkers. And I think a lot of scientists start out as systems thinkers, but I think often through all of our training and our PhDs and everything else, we become very siloed and very discipline specific. So that's one significant difference in the approach between those two different knowledge systems. Secondly, though, there have been historic events, certainly in Australia and I'm sure elsewhere, that have actually forced traditional owners to lose connection to country by those forced removals. And so what we have is very varied cultural knowledge and cultural practice across different traditional owner communities. So one of the ways that we're bridging that is through co-design, and I've heard that spoken about a lot today, which is really fantastic. And we find that co-design provides a culturally safe space for traditional owners to come and to share their knowledge. But it also provides the right processes to be able to integrate the traditional and Western knowledge systems. And what we're seeing is it is dramatically increasing the participation of traditional owners in reef management activities on the Great Barrier Reef, and particularly when it comes to caring for healthy water, for healing country initiatives. There's a lot of work going on integrated climate vulnerability tools, and importantly also strengthening governance and nation building. But it's all about putting traditional owners at the heart of the work that we do to conserve ecosystems.
Yeah, taking into account all those human relationships with the ocean in all the forms that they take. So it's a perfect transition from Australia, which is a large island developed state, to Angelique, who will be talking about small island developing states. We have all different size islands here represented. So Angelique, who's part of the Alliance of Small Island States and crucially a Decade Advisory Board member, so you have to make sure this decade goes well. You have part ownership over it. But please tell us a little bit about some of the specific needs of SIDS in terms of ocean science.
Thank you very much, and thanks for inviting me to speak on this. So yes, maybe you've heard in the rooms there has been a change in narrative away from this small island developing states to the large ocean states or the big ocean states. We thought it would be presumptuous to go with great ocean developing states, which would read gods.
But then, but then big ocean states, you're the boss.
We think so. We certainly think so. But small island developing states are very much custodians of over 33 million kilometer squares of ocean, and that's only an exclusive economic zone. I'm not even talking about high seas. But yet, there are so few marine scientists coming from small island developing states, and the majority of the science about small island developing states are actually coming from institutions very far away from small island developing states. And this is certainly reflective of the situation and the need for marine science in small island developing states, but also from SIDS scholars. And it's very important to emphasize that The need is one of capacity building, for one, making sure that it's not just these one-off ad hoc workshops that we're invited to. Boxes are ticked, there were 3 SIDS represented, and everybody sort of walks away feeling very fulfilled. It definitely has to be capacity that is sustained in the long term. It has to be capacity on engagements of equal terms. There's a lot there that I could reflect on effective and meaningful, genuine partnerships for capacity building. But then, of course, there are situations when we do have the capacity, and I think some of you have already seen one of our marine scientists, Dr. Diva Amon from Trinidad and Tobago. And so there is also capacity within small island developing states, but there's a missing piece. There's no facilities or limited facilities, and there's limited or no technology in small island developing states. And what does that mean? It means that we're entirely dependent on the interest of people to venture into our waters, or the absolute whims of anyone as to whether they would like for this science to proceed. And that is fundamentally one of the issues that we have as small island developing states, to really, when we do have the capacity to go and actually understand and explore this over 33 million kilometers square of ocean. But and the other aspect, and I'm going to end with a quote because I think our panel needs a quote. But the other aspect is, the decade is not about science alone, right? It's about science for sustainable development. And even once we have the science, the data, it's about that ownership of the data. It's also about being able to understand how we use the data for informed policy. That's a whole other level of capacity that also needs strengthening. 01000, I don't know what that means. It needs to be communicated in a way that is useful to policymakers, and for policymakers to be then able to use that information to make good decisions. But now to go to our mandatory quote. A friend of mine, she's currently out on a vessel. She's a marine scientist from the Seychelles. Her name is Sheena Talma. And I'd like to share her reflections here. That's very much telling of the need in small island developing states. But in particular, here in the Seychelles, so open quote, here in the Seychelles, we have a long way to go towards recognizing the need for science as one of the major tools towards informing sound policy. Maybe it's because a lot of our science was historically conducted and led by foreign nationals and had little involvement from the locals. It's not about not having foreign nationals. We need everybody. The problem arises when an outside expert sets the narrative, while local, indigenous knowledge, especially that of women, gets drowned out and labeled as inferior. There definitely needs to be a shift in leadership or co-leadership so people can see mentors and scientific experts being created from their own communities. And I think that is reflective of the need of SIDS. Thank you.
Well, now I'm very glad that I didn't come up with a quote. No quote that I could have, Googled and put in my notes could have, defined this session better than that. So thank you for that. We're turning a little bit in a different direction as we go to Marcus Muller, the managing director, the global head, chief investment office, private bank at Deutsche Bank. And you represent, the private sector, the banking sector, this investment. We've heard on our panels earlier today, and we've heard all week during the conference that there's ideas, and how do we connect ideas to money to move forward to achieve the Ocean Decade goals and our 2030 goals. So how can this sector contribute to changing individual and institutional behavior in relation to the ocean?
I don't know. So. No, I'm an ordinary economist, and I never wanted to work in a bank. Now I'm working in a bank, and I have to solve this problem, and I have also a quote. Prepared, not spontaneous. So it's H.L. Mencken, a American author with German roots, who said, to every complex problem there's a simple, clear answer which is wrong. And what does it mean? So if we are not feeling well as a human, we go to the doctor makes the analysis and gives us, based on the symptoms, a medicine for the underlying disease. He doesn't say, or she doesn't say, take this and this will heal you, right? So we have maybe simple solutions, but we need to identify the various aspects of the complexity. If we try to oversimplify the complexity of the nature we're embedded in, we do mistakes. GDP is one of those examples. GDP is not wrong, GDP is right, but it's just a flow measure. And we are part of financial system. So we can be agent of positive change as a bank if we explain what economics means, and not the Wealth of Nation book from Adam Smith is the important one. It is the theory of moral sentiment, his first book he has written, why individuals act as they act. If we understand why we act as we do act, we need to know what we have to change. Point number one. Point number two, we as Deutsche Bank, we are part of society. We can't exclude ourselves of society. Therefore, we have to educate our staff and educate also society. Literacy, economic literacy, ocean literacy, environmental literacy is key. Thirdly, we need really transparency. At the capital markets, we trade expectations based on information. If the information is not there, the trading will be difficult, or the expectation building will be difficult. And this means we need to go into honest dialogues with states, with local communities, and they have to tell us if they do not know what their problem is, or what their problem is, that we can act in line with this. And this, all what I have said, hopefully will lead to the understanding of the financial market that a nature-compliant economic system must become an alternative to the current system. And this is our job.
It's great to know that banks are people too. Bankers are people too who care about the ocean, and it's great to have your perspective, on this panel. Because we're running low on time, I'm going to turn to Heather from the Bertarelli Foundation and Zoological Society of London. We have such a diversity of accents on this panel, which I always love. So I, myself, am an early career ocean professional in ECOP, and you work with a lot of ECOPs in the Indian Ocean and ran a fantastic side event earlier this week that really catalyzed an intergenerational conversation, in a way that hasn't been able to happen yet during the Ocean Decade since we've been virtual. So what were some of the key outcomes from that event? What did you love from the outcomes of that event?
Well, one of my amazing panelists is sitting right here. There we go. But I think it was really the opportunity to recognize that we all want to save the ocean. We've got a range of disciplines just on this panel and certainly in this room. But 70% of the coastlines of the world are in the global south. And if we look around this conference, it's not representative of that. And quote time, Dr. Asher DeVos, who is another of the panelists, most eloquently summarized it as talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. So I think we have to recognize that talent is talent. We need to make sure that that's recognized irrespective of gender, of background, of ethnicity, or filtered by any other kind of conscious or unconscious bias. We need to provide opportunities and recognize that, and that means changing the system. The science system is set up around egos and leadership. You're rewarded for being lead author, you're rewarded for being a PI on a grant. And to disrupt that system, as Angelique said, and Sheena, this brilliant quote, we have to be prepared as Western scientists, and I am one, to step aside, to elevate the opportunities from the scientists from those places, from that country, and provide those opportunities, allow leadership of expeditions, of papers, and more for students. We have to provide those opportunities and that funding. And that's been a big driver of providing specific funding from the Bertarelli Foundation to early career scientists from the Indian Ocean region, and recognizing how many barriers exist. It's not unidirectional flow of knowledge from north to south. It's not even two directional, it's also south to the south and in all different directions. And there's talk of co-design or participation or engagement across communities and so on is essential. So we need to ring-fence funding for capacity building. We need to engage partners. We need to provide other skills than, which include training, mentorship, soft skills. And a big shout out to the ECOP. They have a great survey leaflet here. Stand up, ECOP, you're amazing. And if you're all at the back, you're in trouble, because I think the other key thing, all right, hands up, or are you asleep? Come on, ECOP, stand up, you're amazing.
Applause.
Okay. So to conclude, leadership, all ECOPs are already ocean leaders. They're doing incredible jobs, but also, in spite of their brilliance, they are also facing enormous barriers, and we need to help that to be overcome. It shouldn't be thick skins, determination, and a ridiculous work ethic to let that happen. We need to provide much, much better enabling conditions. To be an ocean leader, age is just a number. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Keep that applause going for our fantastic panelists for really defining this question and helping us think critically about what has to change as we move forward. So we're going to turn quickly to another one of our fabulous videos from Down Under this time. Roll the tape.
We know more about space than we do the deep sea. There's a whole world to discover in the deep ocean. Diving deep, you can find the panda bear sea angel, the ghost shark, and the flapjack octopus. The ocean is an unexplored frontier here on Earth. The deep ocean has inspired innovation. Explore the deep. Our future is down here. A contribution by Piping Hot to the United Nations Ocean Decade for Sustainable Development.
I don't know about you, but I'm going to need one of those tie-dye sweatsuits immediately. We should have done, oh, and under your chairs. Everyone, no. So we have 3 more fantastic announcements, interventions to come. And first up, we have probably our youngest participant today, the fabulous Dakota Peebler.
Thank you so much, Taylor, and thank you for the panelists for your incredibly important words. I really appreciated that. And thank you to all of you who are here. It is truly an honor for me to be sharing this space with you all. I would like to start off today by asking 2 questions. My first question is, who here is actively engaging teenage youth in your Ocean Decade efforts? Awesome. Now, who here believes it is important that youth my age are actively engaged in these efforts? Right, so I see more hands there, and I absolutely agree. Youth in my generation should be meaningfully engaged in the decade, as we will be impacted by decisions that are being made today. But how do we most effectively, most meaningfully engage youth my age in the decade? Hello everyone, my name is Dakota Peebler. I am 16 years old and a co-founder of Heirs to Our Oceans. Heirs to Our Oceans, an international youth-led organization, empowers the next generation of leaders through connecting them in purpose, educating youth on the environmental and humanitarian crises we will be inheriting, cultivating skills so that we can create real-world change, and supporting youth in realizing solutions to today's global challenges. And Heirs to Our Oceans, along with the support of NOAA, formed the United States Youth Advisory Council for the UN Ocean Decade in December of 2020. And it's the first of its kind in the world engaging youth ages 15 to 24. Thank you. And I have been lucky enough to be a member of the first and second cohort of this council. And this Youth Advisory Council was formed to ensure that youth have a meaningful seat at the table when it comes to the decade, because at its conclusion, we will be inheriting this blue planet in whatever state it's in. So this ocean decade must genuinely be a multi-generational endeavor where youth voices around the world are included, amplified, and listened to. We are very, very thankful to the United States National Committee for supporting us and providing spaces where we can share our ideas, our thoughts, and our calls to action. Youth around the world have reached out to Heirs to Our Oceans interested in starting youth advisory councils of their own, and we are so, so excited. And we responded by creating a comprehensive toolkit. And in this toolkit, there is everything needed to start a youth advisory council. So if anyone's interested in learning more about what these youth advisory councils do, feel free to reach out. We would love to discuss more about these youth advisory councils. But before I wrap up, I would like to mention, as we discuss engaging youth in these spaces and bringing young youth voices into the Ocean Decade space, I think it's important that we make these places accessible. Youth under the age of 18 aren't able to attend the official UN Ocean Decade Conference. And there are incredible youth leaders ages 15, 16, 17 who deserve to be in those spaces and be a part of learning about decisions that are being discussed that will impact our generation and our future. So I ask that as we discuss this and the importance of bringing youth into these spaces, we make it accessible. Lastly, I would like to thank the IOC UNESCO for having me here today. I would like to thank Executive Secretary Dr. Vladimir Rubanin and Program Specialist Alison Clausen for having supported us since our formation. And thank you everyone here for the work you are doing for my generation and for our future. Thank you so, so much.
If you were starting to fall asleep, I think you're awake again now. Thank you so much, Dakota. Next up, we have Amon, I asked you how to pronounce it, and then I'm going to do it wrong, Chirkawi from the Mohammed VI Foundation for Environmental Protection.
Thank you. Thank you, Taylor. Thank you, Dakota. I hope you won't fall asleep again after my intervention. On behalf of Her Royal Highness Princess Al Hasna, President of the Mohammed VI Foundation for Environmental Protection and Patron of the Alliance, I would like to reaffirm the full commitment of the Foundation to this important alliance. A few weeks ago, in close collaboration with UNESCO IOC, we hosted the second Foundation's dialogue at the Hassan II International Environment Training Center in Sidi Bouknadel in the Kingdom of Morocco on the road to Lisbon. We certainly were very inspired by the conversations that took place over 3 days with dozens of international participants. While all the topics that were discussed are of equal importance, I would like to bring to your attention two specific elements. First, very much in the spirit of what Heather was saying previously, we organized an Africa Roundtable as part of the event. During that roundtable, we discussed ocean philanthropic and academic work in Africa and how to support the 9 priorities of the Ocean Decade Africa Roadmap. We are all very keen to align with the 9 priorities of that roadmap, such as strengthening capacities and skills of African ECOPs and the Regional Ocean Literacy Program for Africa. Again, in the spirit of what Heather was saying in terms of the importance of being meaningful in inclusion and integration, we supported the physical participation in that roundtable of African experts from across the continent. And the spirit of inclusion is no tokenism that limits itself to checkboxes or optics for an event or two. It is a continuous commitment of the Foundation across fora. Last week, we hosted the first post-UNEA 5 and pre-UNEA 6 African major groups and stakeholders meeting. Dozens of African stakeholders converged at the center in Morocco and adopted an implementation roadmap. This week here in Lisbon, we are supporting the participation of Moroccan stakeholders and an ECOP from Tunisia. The second element from the Foundation's dialogue that I wanted to highlight for your attention is, drum roll, the Bouknadel statement. To tell you what the statement is, I'll start by telling you what it is not. It is not about stating the obvious. It is not about promoting inertia. It is not about having a piece of paper. It is about innovation. integration, and pushing the boundaries as a direction of travel for all of us in impactful support of the decade. The statement is structured around 9 clauses that highlight important elements of diagnosis and focus of the members of the Foundation's dialogue when it comes to the ocean and the 2030 agenda. The final clause is an invitation to the wider philanthropic community, and I would like to extend that invitation to all of you to support the co-design. We heard about co-design earlier. Co-delivery, communication, sharing and uptake and development of capacity for ocean science and knowledge by diverse stakeholders across the world. Collaborate within the philanthropic community and with partners to develop innovative blended financing mechanisms and partnerships to mobilize the resources needed to support existing and future Ocean Decade actions. Commit to longer-term investment in initiatives at multiple scales to encourage sustainability, stability, and long-term impact. Encourage and contribute to open and transparent sharing and publishing of ocean data, information, and technology so they are accessible to all, regardless of age, gender, or geography. Continue to seek, scrutinize, and invest in technology. I think Monica will be happy with that. That supports transformative ocean science to achieve sustainable development and that allows impactful ocean science to be undertaken across the world. Advocate and inspire investment in ocean science for funders and partners who have a primary focus on the multiple facets of the 2030 agenda that depend on improved ocean science and knowledge, expand the reach, impact, and diversity of the Foundation's dialogue network, and finally, work hand in hand with the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO in its role as coordinator of the Ocean Decade to achieve the ocean we want by 2030. This is the invitation. And I ask you, Taylor, Monica, I ask all of us really, what better time is there than here in Lisbon? What better time is there than now to join the spirit of that statement? For the people, for the planet, for Dakota, leaving no one behind. Thank you very much.
Well, none of you have an excuse. You can't say your invitation didn't get lost in the mail, because it was delivered to you right here. Thank you so much. So last but very much not least is my dear friend Alexis Valeri Orton from the Ocean Foundation.
I feel as though Eamon gave me the most perfect introduction for my announcement, which is that a few weeks ago, as just mentioned, a group of philanthropic organizations met in Rabat to discuss how the philanthropic community can best engage with and support the decade. At this meeting, it became clear that we, as philanthropic organizations, have a unique role to play in supporting the success of the decade. Specifically, philanthropies have a long history of ensuring that ocean science effectively contributes to sustainable development. Many philanthropies have funding priorities and extensive expertise related to cross-cutting foundational principles such as co-design and co-delivery of science, effective and lasting capacity development, and effective communications. I am therefore pleased to announce an outcome of this Foundation's dialogue. The Ocean Foundation, in partnership with the Lenfest Ocean Program of the Pew Charitable Trust, the Tula Foundation, Rev Ocean, Fundação Grupo Boticario, and the Schmidt Ocean Institute, is pleased to announce our intention to create a funders collaborative in support of the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. This collaborative aims to develop innovative blended financing mechanisms, in-kind support, and partnerships that draw on the resources of our members to support decade actions, with a focus on the 3 C's: co-design, capacity development, and communications. We are working now to devise the mission and structure of this collaborative, and I invite you to join us in this effort. There are one-pagers in the auditorium and outside with more information about the 3 C's and how you can contact us to engage. So thank you very much, and I hope that I will be hearing from you soon.
And back to you, Monica.
Thank you so much, Taylor. You did a great job emceeing through this whole passage, and thank you again to your panelists, of course, and what fantastic announcements. I mean, the passion, the urgency, and we have 8 years left eight and a half years left to get it all done. So thank you so much, Taylor, because before we enter the final session of this Decade Forum, we want to share another action video with you and get a glimpse of the Ocean Teacher Global Academy.
The health of our planet greatly relies on the natural balance of our shared ocean. To guarantee its well-functioning, it is vital to know and understand the impact of the ocean on us and how our decisions impact our ocean. The Ocean Teacher Global Academy is driven to provide training in ocean science within the community. The Ocean Teacher web-based platform offers online, classroom, or even a blend of classroom and distance training on multiple topics related to ocean sciences. The courses cover a wide range of topics, such as data management, natural disasters forecasting, prevention of marine pollution, implementing international marine law, among many others, related to IOC programs and its capacity development strategy. Numerous users, from all over the globe, have already registered on the platform and benefited from the courses, which are available in 4 languages. Ocean Teacher Global Academy is a network of regional and specialized training centers that meets the needs of the all IOC member states. Through sharing knowledge, the Ocean Teacher Global Academy contributes to the UN Sustainable Development Goals 4, 5, 9, 11, 13, and 14, ensuring that the highest quality training is delivered to people of all ages, genders, backgrounds, and geographies. Promoting knowledge and information that support an informed community is key for achieving the ocean we need for the future we want.
It's always one of those slug lines that I remember all too well from those last 12 months also, to get the ocean we want, the ocean we need, which is something that was introduced basically about a year ago when the United Nations proclaimed a decade of ocean science for sustainable development to support efforts to reverse the cycle of decline in the ocean, to bring together stakeholders worldwide like you behind a common framework that will ensure that ocean science can fully support countries in creating measures and conditions for sustainable development of the ocean. That was a year ago. And as I said earlier, we have about 8 years left for the Ocean Decade, 8 years and 6 months. Let's be generous. So with those 8.5 years to go, let's now look towards 2030 and the legacy of the Ocean Decade. And I would like to do that together with those wonderful people here on stage. Margaret Leinen, who is the director of the Scripps Institution of Oceanography in the United States, with Amy Clark, the UNESCO Aotearoa Youth Leader of New Zealand. I've tried my best. Ocean Decade Committee representative, of course, with Alfredo, and now there you have to help me. Is it Giron or Giron? Giron, Alfredo Giron, Andre Hoffman Fellow at the Stanford Center for Ocean Solutions and the World Economic Forum, and Maya Gabera, professional surfer and UNESCO Ocean Champion. So very good to have all of you here for those 17 minutes that they granted us. Wow, that's not what my watch says, but thank you so much. So, Margaret, when we were just listening also to those announcements and those young, energetic people on stage, I know that when we were that age, it was a different world. So, when you look back in your career, what would have been different, or how would your path have been impacted if an initiative like the Ocean Decade had existed then?
there was actually a decade, and it transformed my career. 50 years ago, from the beginning of the UN Ocean Decade, another IOC-led decade started, the International Decade of Ocean Exploration. Before that time, oceanography was totally different. It was cruises that went from port to port and essentially described things, described the ocean. They would run the sonar, they would take a piston core once a day, they would run a biology trawl once a day, and if they happened across something that was particularly interesting, maybe a seamount that came up close to the surface, they might stop and do a little survey of it. The International Decade of Ocean Exploration changed all that. It focused oceanography on processes instead of description. And it was focused around large decade-long programs, just like this one is. For physical oceanographers, it was mode and polymode. For air-sea interaction, it was CIREX. For biology, NORPAX and others. And these utterly transformed oceanography in the day because they focused it on how the ocean worked rather than what it looked like. And it was quite different in the sense that there were no ECOPs. You were lucky if you were a young scientist and got to go on one of those cruises, no less participated in the definition of the planning of the problem that they were going to address, where they were going to go, or how they were going to do the science. And it...
How much awareness was there back then that the ocean actually needs to be also looked after and not just used by us?
I think that it wasn't a sense of the ocean had to be looked after. We weren't encountering overfishing, at least at the level, nowhere near the level we are now. Of course, in 1970, we didn't even have the concept of really anthropogenic climate change. And we didn't have a sense of the ocean for use by people or co-design. That was totally new. And of course, there were, I never saw an oceanographer of color. I saw extremely few women. And the co-design process didn't exist. So I think that one of the things that people of my generation know as a result of that is that this decade will transform oceanography because we've seen it happen before.
Right.
And I think that that is really, it's something that energizes me. It energizes all of the people that are the senior folks now because they know that oceanography will be different. So since we're doing quotes, a very famous oceanographer, a previous director of Scripps Oceanography said, great periods of oceanography, that was Roger Revelle, great periods of oceanography are defined by new kinds of technology. I think instead, great periods of oceanography are defined by new concepts of what oceanography is and who does it.
So if I understand you correctly, and I would like to move on to Maya now, that those last 50 years, they weren't lost. This ocean decade now can build on an awful lot that was discovered, that we learned. And Maya, in several times, it was a loop of several Ocean Decade videos that we showed throughout this afternoon. And there was one with you surfing fiercely and fearlessly. And there was also this quote, we could hear you say, you know, the ocean is your happy place. And I'm wondering, how do you feel about your happy place now with the Ocean Decade? How optimistic are you that the decade can keep your happy place? And what are your biggest concerns?
Wow, that's a big question. You have figured I'm the surfer. I have enough written or whatsoever with me. I just walked up on stage. I'm excited because like earlier today we were even here on another talk, and we had a survey coming out from Brazil, and we realized how little people in Brazil, which is a country that has so much ocean and culturally very strong, related to the beach and being on the beach and everything, we realized that, Brazilians don't know much about the ocean, like actually at all. So I think it's, and even for me, I've been surfing professionally for 15 years, and you must think, oh, I'm a specialist on the ocean, but I'm not. I surf above the ocean. I don't see what's under me quite often. I actually hope I don't see it, because if I'm under there, I'm getting tossed everywhere, and it's not a good thing. So science is so important, and for the past few years, getting more and more involved with ocean conservation, I've learned so much that I didn't know. And I felt like there's no way people know these things, because here I am surfing all day long in every place you can imagine, and I don't know anything. And so I think there's an important mission here to communicate and to teach people about ocean, because what we don't know, we don't care. Right. I care for the ocean because I know it deeply, and I spend so much time in it, and it's my profession, it's my love, it's my passion, it's everything I have, really comes from the ocean. But how can I expect others that don't know anything about it to protect, or to know that's endangered, or to, and I feel bad that they don't even enjoy the ocean, like they should get the privilege that, we have to jump in the ocean and be cured by salt water and see those animals and the biodiversity. So, when I was 13, I started surfing, and I have a very awesome liberal dad. And when I was 15, I was in Rio, and I said, Dad, I found a school that has surfing in their curriculum. It's in Australia, but I really think you should send me there, because it's the only one I found that I can actually go to school and go to the ocean while I'm at school. And he did. And that changed my life. So I hope we can incorporate that into every school, honestly, that has access to the beach, and ocean literacy to every school in the world, because we have to protect the ocean, and we will not protect something that we don't know of. So
very, very important point, that you don't care for something you don't know. And obviously not everybody lives near the ocean or has access to it. So very, very important point. Aimee, look towards 2030. Yes. Let's just jump those 8 years and hear from you what you think, what would be a successful outcome of the Ocean Decade.
Kia ora everybody, thank you so much for having me here today. This is a big question. But one of the ways that I see success at the end of the decade, and to echo some of the other amazing speakers that we've already heard from today, is the further integration of Indigenous knowledge in ocean science. One of the things that is really important to me, and also to the New Zealand National Commission for UNESCO, is looking into how we can weave knowledge systems together for a more multidisciplinary and collaborative approach to the decade. So the New Zealand National Commission for UNESCO and the New Zealand Ocean Decade Committee are actively working to weave the UN Ocean Decade with the UN Decade of Indigenous Knowledge and Language, because we believe these two decades are very interconnected. We value the knowledge of Motoranga Māori and building relationships with the Pacific to be integral to our approach to the decade, and I believe that weaving Indigenous knowledge with Western science will create more success across the decade itself. Additionally, alongside achieving the 7 decade outcomes, I would also see success in the decade as bringing the ocean and its intrinsic value and importance to the minds of every person on Earth, especially policymakers and leaders who I sometimes feel forget the ocean when they are looking at new climate or terrestrial environmental policies.
Wow. But thank you for that. That was very clear stated. And I'm afraid I have to keep an eye on the clock. It's amazing how fast it runs. And quickly move on to Alfredo, because you actually set a challenge. sorry, we have to share those microphones, to the 2019 Ocean Decade Global Planning Meeting to increase engagement of ECOPs in the decade. Now, we've heard several ones on stage already, and I think they've proven that their engagement is extremely valuable. But looking at the challenge that you set in 2019 and today, the 30th of June 2022, how has the decade fared so far? Where do we need to improve?
Thank you for that. Let me just tell a little bit more of that story that happened in Copenhagen. We were in that first global planning meeting. We looked around the room, 200 plus invitees, and 4 or 5 were early in their careers. And the question that popped up on our heads, and many of those people are in this room, was, are we planning a decade of actions and priorities without the next generation of leaders who actually will have to carry them forward? Does that make sense? And the answer, of course, was no. And the IOC UNESCO took on this very, very seriously, also with the support of some of our champions at the executive planning group, like Margaret, and many others of you in here. And they told us, okay, how can we fix this? What do we need to do? So what did we ask for? We asked for 3 things. Number 1, recognize the role of ECOPs, and the fact that we can use the word ECOPs is already an achievement. Early career ocean professionals didn't exist before that meeting. So recognize their role in every aspect of the ocean economy and ocean sustainability. Number 2, having a seat at the table. How do we design? How do we plan? How do we communicate everything? Number 3, giving them the tools in the form of skills, networks, mentoring. And so let me just make it really, really clear. It has been successful. And let me make something else very clear. We would have been evil if we didn't go in that direction. But actually, just to be a little more serious, we didn't anticipate the support that these got. It was amazing. It was challenging. We had a lot of work to do. We had a global survey. It went out. We tried to identify needs. They were so disparate, but we got the support all the time, and we still have it. And so what has been achieved? First of all, the establishment of an ECOP program as part of the decade, which is attending to global needs. Second, that program has started establishing regional nodes to really start tailoring those capacity development trainings, those surveys, those interactions for networking opportunities. And third, and perhaps one of the most transformational ones, motivating many of your organizations to do something for your ECOPs. How many times throughout this event we have heard that you are doing something for them? And that is really the best change that we could have hoped for. So with that, I just want to share that the decade is a collaboration. We need everyone. And focusing on ECOPs provides the opportunity not only to bring in that next generation, but also to bring in a more diverse generation. And a generation of, if we are careful, early career ocean professional doesn't mean scientist. It means scientist, engineer, dive master, journalist, communicator, everyone who has a stake in the ocean. So I would just like to really take this opportunity to congratulate UNESCO, the IOC. This has been incredible. It has been very successful, and to congratulate all of you for all the support. I am pretty sure that this is going to be, as Margaret was mentioning, that decade in which we transform how we do things, because we have these fresh minds, eager to collaborate, eager to try new things, being given the opportunities to do so. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Alfredo. And my gut feeling would love to go into a second and a third round with you. My head says I have to wrap this up. And I would just like to summarize for once knowledge, experience, diversity, communication, traditional knowledge, indigenous knowledge, and of course the next generation and listening to them. I think this is sort of in broad strokes what we've heard here, and I would like to thank all of you for taking the time and for being here and sharing this with us, because believe it or not, this Decade Forum is coming to a close. First of all, I would like to thank you all for having me here with you in Lisbon, and I would now like to give the floor for the closing words to Julien Barbier. He is the head of Section Marine Policy Regional Coordination at IOC UNESCO and Global Coordinator of the Ocean Decade. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Monica. What a day, what a day, what a week even, I would say. For many months, I mean, this whole week has been the point of convergence, really, for coming together here in Lisbon and demonstrating the power of science and innovation in delivering transformative actions for our ocean. But also an opportunity, a unique opportunity for convincing politicians, financiers, to support the decade movement, but also to create new collaboration across borders, across disciplines, across stakeholders. I think despite depriving ourselves of our most basic human rights in the last 7 days, sleeping, eating, going to the bathroom, we have showed the ocean community that what the decade is about, what vision it embraces, and what opportunities it offers for all nations to enjoy a healthy and resilient ocean. I think we have seen today but only a glimpse of what these actions are doing to generate solutions and to co-design the science we need. And I really thank all the people that are behind these actions who truly believe in the transformative power of a decade. We have 41 programs, or more than 100 projects. Hundreds of activities are taking place all around the world. But we cannot stop here. We cannot be complacent. We still have a long road to ensure that the decade is truly inclusive and delivers self-driven actions in Africa, in small island developing states, in the most remote part of the world. Above all, it's also getting the right funding at the appropriate level, and we still need to work there. But for this, we need each of you to be decade activists and help us to grow this community. So I want to give you a challenge. I want you to, within a year, reach out to a philanthropist, to a decision maker, to a private sector representative, and engage them in the decade. That's your challenge, and we'll be checking. We know where you live. We have your names. I want to recall that we are building whilst we are flying as well. We have an emerging infrastructure to deliver the decade. We have a coordination unit, which is slowly growing, but I think we are getting there. We also have institutional commitments from our newly endorsed Decade collaborative centers, Decade implementing partners, and hopefully we will have even more in the months and years to come. So I really ask you to take action to help us participate in those call for Decade actions, collaborate through the Decade Stakeholder Forum. We have an ongoing call number 3, which is open until the end of August, focusing on sustainable ocean economy and the blue food. At the national level, if you don't have a national decade committees, try to push for one. Look, we have 28 already. We can get many more. We've heard we can also engage youth, create a youth advisory council. If you're a private sector interested member, join the private sector network, or if you're a philanthropist, join the foundation dialogue. The limit is the sky. So I think with these, we can only keep and increase the momentum to get to where we need in 8.5 years, but also beyond, because I think at the end of the day, what we are doing, we are building the foundation of our future here. So it's now time to say thank you. Thank all the panelists and the speakers for inspiring us, because without that inspiration, Decade outcome number 7, we cannot achieve that vision. I want to thank you, Monica Jones. I think I roughly calculated that you have moderated cumulatively over 35 hours of Decade laboratories and related meetings, which certainly makes you a world expert in all Decade matters. So I shall call you Dr. Jones from now on. I want to thank our great partners who supported this forum, in particular Herb Ocean, for keeping us refreshed and hydrated. I want to thank Schmid Ocean Institute for the beautiful images that we saw at the beginning. Thank you to Carl Weiner in particular, and also, please do check the exhibit in the atrium. And then, finally, I want to thank the people behind the Decade coordination. They are relentless, they are committed, they are generous, they are tired and hungry, but they are also true heroes. I want to thank my partner in crime, Alison Clausen, who masterminded this event. And to thank Amanda Lima, Aya Khalil, Louis de Marne, Rejan Hervé, Vinicius Lindoso, Caitlin, and all the NOAA and UNESCO Venice office support staff, but also all the team in Paris and everywhere in the world who are keeping the shop going whilst we're having fun here in Lisbon. So this is Chloe, Isabel, Madina, Chelsea, Michael, Anastasia, Monique, and Olivier. And also to all my IOC colleagues who are trying also to make a difference with their own programs in science, in observation, in data, in disaster risk management, and capacity development. Thank you to our host, Ciência Viva, in particular Ana Noronha and her team, and all our colleagues here in Portugal who have helped us to make a big push during this week, to acknowledge in particular Luís Pinheiro, our Portuguese IOC national focal point, who has been a great help in all this team. So with this, we'll see you very soon. We'll take a few days off, but we'll be back soon, we promise, probably in September. But we wish you a very good end of the week here in Lisbon, and keep in touch. We look forward to continue working with you to deliver the science we need. Thank you very much.
So,
today, I'm taking action.
Today, I'm making new choices, as I should.
Because our planet is a blue planet.
And I'm changing the ocean for good.
I used to say, there's nothing wrong.
I used to say, let's just have fun.
I can't change the ocean by myself. I didn't think change could be done.
So I stood by, watched sea levels rise.
Sat back as corals were bleached.
I didn't think I was part of the problem.
I didn't know a solution could be reached.
But I've learned
that small actions matter.
And science tells us it's time.
I now know what we have to do.
To restore the ocean that's yours and mine.
So what's stopping you from taking action? Let's all just have a think.
What can you do to make a difference?
I bring the ocean back from the brink.
We know every day matters.
So let's pour action into motion.
We're the ones to do this.
We are
Generation Ocean.
Gen Ocean. For the ocean we need.